I am not sad. If I sound like I'm sad, it's because I just had a massage and I sound like this after a massage. So pardon me as I come back to life. You know, it's part of the life of Bali. We're investing in different ways. So we are today going to talk about an aspect of investing that is often overlooked, which is taxes. But the way that I think about taxes is different from how a lot of people think about taxes. Because I think when we think of taxes, we think of the stuff that the government charges us, which is also not nice. Nobody likes getting charged the stuff that the government charges us. We're going to cover that and the secrets around that. But I also think about taxes as the invisible tax that happens while I don't know that it's happening. So when I do something where my health suffers, I consider that to be a tax. There's wealth taxes and then there's health taxes. So we're paying like that. There might be a relationship tax. There might be there's a lot of different taxes that happen. Just like printing money is a tax that we all get charged along the way. So we're going to look at a lot of those different things. We're also going to leave it a couple moments for everybody to flow in. And no, I haven't forgotten that we listened to a song at the beginning. Come on now. There's no way we don't do that. Yeah, so we're going to listen to a song called You Are the Balance. Because in this process of paying taxes and health taxes and this and that, making choices, we're the decision makers. You are the decision maker. You're the balance. You're the one who decides what counts as investment, which investment to make, which one to pull away from, and what the balance is. So we're going to listen to this. And while we listen to this, I'm going to do something magical. I'm going to give you a live investment masterclass without saying a single word, a live demo. Okay. So with that cliffhanger, let's enjoy this.
Let's go. Lesson 9. You are the balance. You had me with wrong moves. You are the calm in the storm, the edge and the grace, the crack in the form that nobody can place. You are the truth in disguise, the fall and the rise, the question that lives behind all replies. You are the moment I pause, there's something aligned, like time took a breath and slowed down inside. You are the air in my chest, the space in my mind, the part of existence I couldn't define. You are the light in the shadow, the dark in the glow, the part of myself I don't fully know. You are the peace in the tension, the cold, the release, the war in my thoughts that turns into peace. You are the moment I felt this more than control, like losing direction was finding my soul. You are the air that I breathe, the rhythm in me, the part of forever that I cannot see. Let me tell you something I felt. It wasn't just you, it was something else. Like we met in a place that don't use time. I knew you before, but forgot in this life. We were high, we were low, we were both in between, like a wave going up, then returning unseen. You had me still, not in control, but in something real. We were lost, we were found, same mode, same ground, and the silence was loud when you came around. You are the light in the shadow, the dark in the glow, the part of myself I don't fully know. You're not just
How was that masterclass? Did you guys take notes? That is an investing masterclass. This is where I work. This is where I live, basically, right here in this chair. That is where I train and do MMA. This is where I train, make sure my body's done well. And this is where I meditate. So for me, health is the best investment there is. And it's non-negotiable as an investment. To the point where in my hyper efficiency style, I have made it so I have no excuses to be able to invest in that. And I think that is one huge thing to think about when you're investing. Because one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make is in the chase of money, they have lost things that are more important than money. They've lost relationships. People have lost themselves, their minds, their families. They've paid taxes that were way worse than any monetary tax that you could pay. And a way to think about it is like, if you have 30 years left to live, you have 1 billion seconds left, which means you're a billionaire in the thing that every billionaire wishes they were a billionaire in, and most of them aren't. And any billionaire in the world will trade all of their money to have your 1 billion seconds. And if you're lucky enough to have 1 billion seconds left, first of all, just count that. You're one of the wealthy ones. So what we spend that wealth on determines the abundance that actually shows up in the bank account. The bank account is the result. It's the tail end. It's not the point, right? So for me, I realized my health determined a lot of these things. So along with all of that, like let's think about money itself, right? Value itself. In my perspective, money is stored energy. Okay? And today we're going to focus on how do we grow that stored energy? How do we make sure there's a battery big enough to hold it? How do we make sure the least amount gets siphoned away by governments and others? The whole point of this talk is like, if you're here to learn how to avoid taxes, that's stupid. You should pay all of your taxes. You should just learn how to make sure you pay the right amount of tax. That is what this is all going to be about. But money is stored energy, right? And we have to think about it as what is it that we're giving to store that energy? Try to think about it like this. Like that. That to me, we take life and we store energy in our relationships, in our assets, in our health, in our skills, and so much of ourselves is stored energy. We're literally stored energy. Then the world is set up in a way where it's meant to take that energy from us. It's meant to take seconds of life, our intellect, our time, our skills, our knowledge, and it takes it as labor and puts it into the system, the behemoth system. The system looks like a demon, but actually monsters are just as part of nature as bunnies. So the system is built to do what it does. The system has brought insane prosperity to the world. This system, this fiat system that everybody likes talking shit about, has taken 80% of humanity out of poverty and has developed the world to be a magical space where I can talk to you across the ocean. Like, it's sheer magic, right? So it's not the system itself that's the issue. It's that it's been subverted in a way to make sure that the the offset of where the value goes is the problem, right? But basically, the system or life and the kind of capitalist system that exists today takes our time, turns it into labor, and puts it into a calculation. And inside of the system, that labor is combined with energy and resources and turned into productivity. And that productivity is pumped out the other side. Now, that's all fine and good. But then as soon as productivity actually comes out the other side and we're supposed to get that energy back as money, then taxes come in. Then it's like, okay, if you're in Europe or, you know, you're in the States, we're in these places where prosperity exists. Too much of that energy goes into the system again, to the government system. It gets bled out. You're paying more than 40% taxes. Some people are paying 55, 60% taxes. And that creates a huge friction, because if you're going to go out there and earn money and, you know, do what you need to do, you first of all are already spending all your time and energy away from your loved ones. And then even when you earn it, they want it again. And our kind of karmic duty is to make sure that we protect our families from as much of it as we can. It's tax optimization. Tax avoidance is stupid. Tax optimization is the game. That's what we're going to learn about today. And if today you don't find out a bunch of secrets that blow your mind, I'll be very surprised. Because in the end, we're here to protect our families. We're here to build sovereignty and have the freedom that we all deserve and enjoy. And we're here to elevate humanity. All of that requires capital. And the less of the capital that gets bled off, the more of it goes into this bigger picture and this bigger mission. Now, everybody pays income tax, right? But nobody really thinks about, where did income tax come from? Like, who came up with the idea? When did it start? So let's look at that. You know, there was no income tax back in the day. Like, there was a time where the world ran perfectly fine and governments existed, and there was no such thing as income tax. Right? When you think about it, like, okay, I go somewhere, I do something for somebody who needs it, okay? They pay me in this stored energy format called money, dollars, euros, whatever you want to call it. I then have to pay the government a bunch of money just for earning it, which is weird, because I just added a value into the system. And if I have to put in 10%, fine. I'm happy to give back 10%. 15%, cool. We got to make sure the roads are good. 50%, I have to give away half of what I earn to build the roads that you don't even build properly, so you can buy bombs to drop it on other people that I like. You know, that's stupid. Okay, fine, done. Okay, can I keep half my money, please? Yes. Okay, well, I'm gonna go buy something now. I've already paid taxes, right? Can I just go buy something with it because I need to feed my family? Yes. When I buy something, they take tax again. And the person who bought it to give it to me paid tax to buy it. Why? Okay. Every single time along the way, I'm paying tax. Even if I keep my money in the bank, they print money, and that's a tax. When I buy things, that's a tax. When I sell things, that's a tax. When I die, that's a tax. It's like, I can't even die without tax. Bro, how many times do you want me to pay you? You want me to pay you the money that you printed? Wait, hold on. You printed $1. There's only $1 in the system. You lent it to me, and you want me to pay you back $1.10. But you only printed $1. There's only $1 in the system. How can I pay you 10 cents more than how much money exists? Oh, you're going to print more. Okay. Okay, so you're going to put that into the system so I can pay you back. Okay, that makes sense. But if you, Mr. Government, can just print money, why do I have to pay you the money? Why can't you just print it then? Oh, because it'll cause inflation. But you're already causing inflation. You have to cause inflation. Why can't you just build it into the system? Don't worry. Shut up. You're stupid. Go back to work. Okay. But can't you just tell me how much tax I have to pay if you know how much tax I have to pay? No. You have to report your taxes to us. Why do I have to report it if you already know how much I have to pay? We don't know how much you have to pay. Okay, if you don't know how much I have to pay you, then what's the guarantee that I have to tell you the amount? That's half the game. It's how to navigate the world of accounting and structures in a way so that you report the right amount always, but that right amount is optimized. Okay, that's the game. So income taxes didn't used to exist. In the US, taxes actually came from mostly from tariffs and liquor taxes. So what used to happen was people used to drink beer back in the day because you couldn't have clean water. So people would actually pay an alcohol tax on the beer because everybody drank beer or wine. And, you know, if you're classy, if you're Italian, you were drinking fine wines. The rest of us were just drinking beer. And the taxes came from those taxes and tariffs. When you import something, there's a tariff. Okay, cool. The more we use, the more we pay. And they ran the world perfectly fine. The system could have worked. It was a voluntary consumption tax, basically. You know, how much you consume, you pay. There was zero taxes on human labor. That's how it used to work. But then what happened is alcohol got introduced, spirits got introduced into the system. And so men started drinking too much. The same people who were consuming beer morning, evening, and night started drinking alcohol, like distilled alcohol, morning, evening, and night. And then the men started to go home and beat their wives. That's why when you say like rule of thumb, you know what rule of thumb actually means? It means you are not allowed to beat your wife with a stick thicker than your thumb. That's what rule of thumb means. Like that's the kind of shit that was happening. So of course, under all of this abuse, which women have been abused their whole life, like for all of existence. God bless your hearts that you're still creating the rest of us. The government, the politicians wisened up and they were like, hey, how about this? How about this? Ladies, would you like to vote? Yes. How about this? We will stop men from drinking by making liquor illegal. Okay? First of all, the elites realized that we needed more human laborers. Women couldn't just stay at home. They needed more labor. They needed more slaves. So they said, we're going to give you guys freedom. We're going to give you the ability to vote. We're going to make it so that men can't drink anymore so that the violence at home stops. And they logically went, yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Freedom sounds nice, you know? So then they said, okay, if we do that, then the taxes on liquor are going to drop. So we got to run the country. So how about this? We'll introduce an income tax that will be paid by the men anyway that are earning at the time. And you women as well. You have the privilege of getting jobs now. So we're going to introduce prohibition and we're going to introduce this income tax because the liquor taxes are going to drop off. Are you going to vote for that? They said, yeah, as long as we stop getting beaten, we would like to vote for that. So then they introduced the prohibition in 1913. Took away liquor. At the same time, the politicians filled warehouses with liquor with enough supply for them to be able to drink for 30 years. In parallel to that, they allowed the mafia to continue to actually increase the amount of black market liquor that was produced, and they introduced this tax and introduced this system. Left it for a few years, waited until the violence from the gangs poured out into the streets. And then they went back and said, hey, there's too much violence. We're going to allow the liquor to come back. We're going to tax the liquor, but we're going to keep the income tax. And in the end, you guys all get fucked. That is how income tax was introduced into the system. It was a trick and a Trojan horse that was applied upon people. And then they got women working, men working, and the system changed from a world where one earner in a house could provide for the whole family Now, even two earners with multiple jobs can't keep up. You know, even the kids working, they all combined can't own houses anymore. So this has been the transition of this world, right? But in the income tax game, there's still a disparity, which we're going to learn. There's income taxes, and then there's business taxes, and the dynamic between them is completely different. But before we understand all of that, we have to understand taxes from a perspective of tax residency, because taxes aren't just this magical thing that just happens and it's like, you know, the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. No, the only thing guaranteed is death, right? Taxes are optional. Now, a lot of people will say, you know, taxes are optional because the US is a corporation and I get turned into a product and blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, sure, that at the core that is true, but that is not, you can't just then go, I claim myself to not be a product of the US, therefore I will not pay taxes. That's just not how the law works, right? The law is also made by the same people. To understand taxes, you have to understand tax residency, because your taxes are applied according to where your tax residency is. So tax residency is the idea that when you are creating a taxable event, which we're going to understand as well, which jurisdiction applies their tax laws to you? Like, which jurisdiction's tax laws apply to you? Okay. You are always a tax resident of somewhere. The only way to not be a tax resident of somewhere is to renounce your tax residency through proper channels and then travel around the world, not spending any more time than is required to become a tax resident in the country. Some countries it's 45 days, some countries it's 6 months. It varies between countries. The elites do use this tax strategy as well. They actually just will fly around and travel around to different places and not spend enough time in one area to be considered a tax resident. Therefore, voila, tax is gone. That is a legitimate strategy as a person. But tax residency is tied to a certain number of tests that have to be done for you being in the country, okay? So when you spend more than 183 days inside of a country, this is kind of the standard. It varies between different countries, but the kind of median standard is when you spend 6 months inside of a country, that is one thing that makes you a tax resident of many countries. When your centers of vital interest are inside of the country, that also makes you a resident of the country, depending on the country, which means where's your business, where is your main source of revenue, where are you working from, where are your clients coming from. It depends on each country, but you can see, okay, you know, where's your family home, where are your schools, where's your primary bank accounts, which jurisdictions are you in? You know, all of that determines your centers of vital interest, basically, and your habitual abode, which is to say, where do you live, right? Do you live in the country? Do your children go to school in the country? Do you have bank accounts? And which state are you in might determine which jurisdiction your tax residency applies to, or which tax residency laws apply to you. I just came out of a massage, so my brain is still half asleep. That's also why I sound so sexy right now. Okay. So you have to understand your tax residency. Now, you can change your tax residency. That's like a magical thing to a lot of people without having to permanently leave a place. Like, if I want to go back to somewhere right now, I can go there for less than 6 months and not be considered a tax resident of that place. A lot of people are like, look, I can't leave my place because I have my parents. And I ask them this question. I go, hey, how much time do you actually spend with your parents? I had one friend, he was like, man, you know what? I actually only see my mom for Freedom Day or whatever it's called in America. This is how long I left. For July 4th, I see her, and I see her for Christmas for 1 week each. So I see my mom 2 weeks a year. And I was like, dude, how old is your mom? I was like, she's 50. And I was like, okay. If she lives another 30 years, which God bless her heart, I hope she does, you are going to see her 60 weeks. 60 weeks. There's just over a year that you have time to spend with your mom. And he just paused for a second. I was like, yeah, to you, your mom's only going to be alive for a year. Now, how do you spend that time with her? And it like hit him like a ton of bricks. And he started spending more time with his mom. But on the flip side, he was like, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I don't need to be in the country for longer than 6 months. 6 months is already too much, right? So being able to spend time in the country is different from your tax residency. But if you spend more than 6 months, most of the time you become a tax resident. And if you don't spend time with your mom, take it from somebody who's never had one, you should value it. In the end, all this money stuff, depending on your relationship. Some people, you know how it is. I'm not going to go into that. The family talk was the last time. So looking at specifically Americans, there's actually different things you can do, right? America is thought of as this like golden prison now, because as an American, no matter where you go, you will get charged taxes. For everybody else, America and Eritrea, okay, Americans and Eritreans are stuck in this one system. The rest of you guys, if you're somebody who wants to change your tax residency, you simply have to leave your country properly and set up your tax residency somewhere else and start spending less than 6 months in your country and then move your central vital interest, and that your home country will not charge you taxes. Yet. It's coming. Okay, pretty soon it's going to be, if you hold a French passport, you'll pay taxes no matter where you live. Blah, 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 blah. So that is coming. But for now, you could just move to a different place, move your tax residency to a different place, and kind of live in two places and not have to pay taxes. For an American, wherever you go, you have to pay taxes. Even if you set up a company somewhere, you have to pay personal taxes on the revenue. Even if you set up a trust and do this and that, you have to pay taxes in the States. They've closed off most of the doors, but except for this door. There's this rule, which says there's a 330-day rule, which says if you leave and are outside the country for 330 days straight in 1 year, then you get this foreign earned income deduction, which is actually $132,900. The AI fucked this up. It's $132,000. Let me just confirm that. $132,900 for this year, which is to say you can earn $132,000 and not pay any taxes on it as income. You would have to sever your existing ties. So let's say, you're living in Wisconsin, or Wisconsin has this thing. You would have to sever your ties properly. You would have to move your residency over to another place. You would have to show economic substance in a place like Cayman or somewhere else. We're going to look at this in a second. It kind of tied a lot of these things together. And you could then earn $132,000 and not have to pay taxes on that. Okay. Or as an American, you have to basically renounce your citizenship and have an exit tax and a whole process. We'll discuss that later. But this is a little trick most people don't realize, that even if you just moved and continue to work on personal income tax, you could actually get a deduction. Now, that process we're going to go through together. So that's tax residency. Then you have to understand taxable events, because a taxable event is in a visualization that I don't have here. Okay, where are we at? There we go. So a taxable event is when you do something that you're going to pay tax on. So that we understand like this, that when you earn money as a person, you owe taxes as a person. When you earn money as a business, you owe taxes as a business, right? It's the generation of the revenue that is the taxable event in normal terms. And we're going to learn how to optimize that. When you when you actually invest in crypto and you put money into crypto, when you put money in, it's not a taxable event because you haven't earned any money. But when you make any kinds of moves within the system, then it's a taxable event. Okay, this again varies depending on jurisdictions, and I'm going to give you a tool that's going to make it so that you will be able to search with your own jurisdictions. Yes, there's an AI coming, but let's specifically look at the rules that apply to most jurisdictions. It's to say, like, when you put money in through dollars or whatever, that is not a taxable event. Let's say you buy Ethereum. When you buy the Ethereum, it's not a taxable event because you didn't make any money. But when you go from Ethereum to Bitcoin, it is a taxable event. Most people think, oh, profit means I take the money out and go somewhere else. No, profit, when you have Ethereum and you buy Bitcoin, that's a taxable event. So the amount of money earned there, you have to pay taxes on that. And wherever your tax residency is, you have to pay taxes there. Then when you go from Bitcoin to dollars again, USDC, you have to pay taxes again on the amount of money you earned in the Bitcoin itself. Then when you put it back into your bank account, you have to then make sure that that amount of taxes is calculated properly. And that's how capital gets decimated over time. Okay? States, Europe, you guys know the game. You're getting raped on all this stuff. Now, what's been happening, I'll come back to this in a second. So you have to understand this idea of the taxable event, right? When you do it as a person, you really get screwed. Because as a person, what you're doing is you're going and you're earning money as an individual, you're putting in all this time and energy, and as soon as you earn it, the state wants their cut. You know, they're going to take whatever amount from it simply because you earned it, and there's no way to deduct that, right? Then you get to spend the scraps. That is the game that everybody is playing in the world. In the business world, it's different. When you're a business, when you're a corporation, you earn it. You get to spend it on offices, travel, teams, tools, R&D, meals, a lot of different things, right? You get to actually write off a lot of the work that you're doing because it's a business, because it's a cost of running a business, and you get to write off a lot of those things, which means first you get to earn it, then you get to deduct whatever you ended up spending, and then you actually pay taxes on that. So if you earn $100,000 and you have to spend $100,000 to run the business, you pay zero tax, right? That's why being a business over being an individual matters a lot. I know I'm preaching to the choir to some of you people. This is for beginners, so just bear with me here. We get to get into the juicy stuff later on. And this is the trick that entrepreneurs and business owners and the rich people all know this game, that you got to operate as a business and not as an individual. If you earn a paycheck, you're fucked. If you earn revenue as a business and you're able to deduct things, then you're playing the game much better. Also, in many places, the amount of taxes that get levied on individuals in crypto are very different from the taxes that get levied on businesses in crypto. Capital gains tax varies between countries, but it also varies between businesses and humans, right? So here the recommendation is, if you're a person who's capable of switching your revenue streams to being a business, switch over, right? Also, if you're investing, let's say you're investing in Excellency as an individual and you're going to get all these taxes, you can invest as a business and get lower taxes in many places, okay? And we can go through this individually together. If you guys want to, talk about it, we can have a call about it. So switch your crypto over to being a business. Now, another thing that happened was, like, somebody asked this question, which I've been thinking about now for months and months and months, because that's what I do. You guys ask me a question and I sit there and think about it for months right here. Somebody asked a question. They said, hey, could you send me the commissions invoice in a way that I can deduct it on my business? And I've been thinking about that quite a bit. I was like, this is an interesting proposal and it is a smart way to do it. Can we do it? Right now we're structured in Bali and we could do it, but it falls into a gray area zone, which I don't like to play in. I like to have clear regulatory frameworks that we follow so that everything is good, right? This thing is going to $1 billion fund, and I want to make sure the books are clean right from the beginning and everything's done properly. So we couldn't do it here. So what we're doing is we are going to be moving Excellency to the Caymans. That's why you're going to keep seeing it in all of these kind of visualizations. When we move it to the Caymans, we will actually be able to do B2B custom agreements with each one of you guys. It's going to require lawyers to do the work, so only people of a certain size can do this, and you're going to see all the details. But we can do custom B2B agreements between Excellency, the Not Fund. It's a systems platform, and we are even structuring it as a system, basically a SaaS service, where we're providing a software service to your business, and you hold the crypto and you use the software service to be able to get services for your business. Not personal, okay? And that will allow us to be able to send you a custom agreement, and you can then deduct the fees that you pay to Excellency off of your taxes. That's why I decided to even do this talk, to really explain all this stuff. So that's one way to reduce the number of taxes. So you'd be able to get business taxes on your business capital gains taxes on your earnings. Then you'd be able to deduct what is happening with Excellency from your taxes, so more of your energy gets stored and stays where it deserves to stay. Okay, that's basically what we're looking at here. That we would take that 20 right now. That 20% fee is basically you pay it, and you would be paying taxes on that. In the new system, as you send the fee, there's a custom contract, and that custom contract makes it so that it is bespoke according to what is required for you to be able to deduct taxes in your country. And then that makes it a fully deductible operational expense for software service that you're running for your business. That's where we're headed. Now, first of all, any questions about that? Because we're a little ahead of schedule, but any questions about that pop up right now? Going once, going twice. Great. Sold to nobody for not asking questions. Thank you. Okay, so now, what are the benefits of becoming a business? That, first of all, when you become a business, I believe in this. As I've been consulting people go, I want to achieve my mission. I go, okay, what's the biggest holdup? And they'll go, and we'll get to a point where we'll realize it's just money. Money is the holdup. If they had a lot of money, they would go out and build a beautiful world. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you this question. Have you given the universe a button big enough to send you $1 million tomorrow for any reason? They're like, what? I'm like, have you given the universe a button anywhere in your life where the universe could press it and send you $1 million within the reasonability of physics or metaphysics even? I'm like, no, I've never even thought about that. I'm like, you gotta give the universe a big enough button, because the universe can only send you the abundance that you have allowed it to send you, right? If the only button that you've given the universe is a button to your employer, which the employer can click, which has a cap on it, now the employer can only send you this much money because that is the button you've given the universe. There's no other button that exists. Then that is how much abundance will flow to you. You know, people think, okay, well, I'll give the universe the crypto button, and I will buy a bunch of shit coins. Then the universe will send me a lot of money. Yes, that is a button, but you might be giving them, depending on which button you put down, it might be the button that takes all of your money. That's also the thing with buttons. With the business, you give the universe a button big enough to send you $1 million, is my point. Because businesses receiving $1 million is very normal. Individuals receiving $1 million rings every flag, right? So setting up a business is like telling the universe, hey, okay, I'm ready for the big games, right? Then it's like, okay, I'll give you a button. You want a button where you can get $1 million? You want a button where the universe can send you $1 million and you have to spend $0? I'll give it to you. It's called the Excellency button. Talk to a deca millionaire who wants to put $1 million into crypto. Explain to them what's going on here, especially once you see the results. And those of you that have seen the results, you know what I'm talking about. Help that millionaire turn their 1 million into $10 million. And we will send you $1 million. That's a button. How you deal with it is going to be your problem. Because if I just send it to your wallet and you have to declare what you just did to make this $1 million as a person, good luck. You better have your ducks in a row ahead of time. But my point is, give the universe a button. Becoming a business is that button. Okay, now the question's flowing. Why not individuals? Individuals can't deduct off of their taxes. Individuals don't have the ability to deduct off their taxes in most jurisdictions. So this is where later on, when I introduce the AI, you can go in there and ask it all these questions and learn if you are one of the people who maybe can do something with a custom agreement. Individuals, businesses, we're willing to do these custom agreements with anybody, but the vast majority of places, individuals don't really get a benefit of being able to deduct anything off of their life, because this is the game. Individuals are built to be the slaves in the game, and businesses are meant to be the owners of the game. So you have to become an owner. Is there a way to set up a second business for crypto alone? Yes, definitely. Yeah. If you're in the US, you set up an LLC with a trading certification or classification. In different countries, different ways. I'm going to show in the AI. You can go in there and ask it all the questions of how to do it in which jurisdiction and so on and so forth. It is available to do in Bali as well, right? Setting up a residency here, setting up a business allows you to do all of this on your personal side. I have 2 accounts with Excellency, one personal, one business. Is it possible to move the personal account to the business? And if so, what would the tax implications be based in the UK? Honestly, it is possible, definitely. How to do that is going to depend on how your business is structured. It's best discussed with your structuring agent or accountant if you have it, which you should have. But the finer details of how to move that capital inside of the company, you got to discuss with them. You can discuss it with the AI and it'll build you a custom strategy around that. A few ways that people do it is they will invest their assets into the company as personal assets, saying this is what I've invested and the company owes me this back. Some people make it a loan and make it some huge amount that the company owes them back. Some people will, in certain jurisdictions, crypto is allowed to be invested like houses. Like in Indonesia, it's called saham, where you invest an asset into the company to say, I want the company to run well and I'm putting the assets in. There's many different ways to do it, but just have this conversation for your local jurisdiction and figure it out. Afterwards, if you need help, we can jump on a call and we can do a custom strategy around that. Jessica, I want to share that if you are registering a business account on exchange, I found the due diligence is much stricter. So many more questions compared to personal accounts, but if we can write off the 20% commission, it'll be worth it. Definitely. The harder the button is to set up, the more money it makes. Like in life, we simply get paid to do hard things. The harder the thing is to do, the better, the more we get paid to do it. Yes, it's more complicated to set up, unless you're our friend. Okay, those of you that have had this, I think Ewan, you went through this. When you register a business on Kraken or Bybit or OKX, just send me your details, your email, your user ID, or whatever name that they create for you, and I will, because we have VIP relationships with these guys, so we have direct access to their teams. So when somebody sets up a business, sends us the details, I contact the team there and I say, hey, this is our business, VIP, put them in the VIP queue and expedite them. And we vetted them. So as Excellency, well, technically as Excellence Consulting, we are saying that this is a legit person with a good source of funds, so on and so forth. So let them through. And within seconds, usually, which, realistically within hours, the team will push through your application and it gets registered. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a business owned by another business. That gets complicated. As soon as you start shelling businesses, that's when it starts to look like a money laundering scheme. Then there's a lot more ultimate beneficiary owner requirements, and it just gets complicated. You should have a business that's set up simply, and you're good to go. So if in Portugal, if you can deduct things as a person, we're happy to do that for you as well. Any person who would like a custom agreement can do this, but we're going to give you the details down the road. Okay. Given that Excellency is moving to Cayman, will it then also be able to do Excellency for a self-managed super fund? Probably, but I probably still won't do it. Just because, like, when you start messing with like government money like that, it just turns into a shit show, and like it's already super expensive having lawyers that manage stuff. I'll see, but I can't promise it. I'd rather just not deal with retirements. Like, my life is complicated enough. Took me 2 months of bullshit, and then Sim introduced me to Daryl, and voila, within 2 days it was sorted. Exactly. That's how we do it. That's part of this journey of having relationships. I recently restructured our business into a 3-company structure with a holding company. Our house and vehicles are also owned by the companies. It sounds like transferring my crypto to the holding company is a smart thing to do. It does sound like that. It does sound like that. I can't tell you to do anything, but it does sure sound like that. Best answer ever. Very lawyerish answer. Okay, so great. Setting up as a business, fantastic. You guys are getting the game. Now, the next special trick that I'm going to tell you guys about is called tax loss harvesting. Before we go there, second question. I have a business, and would the crypto company be the same or another business? You can usually just put the crypto into the same business. See, in a business, you will have a balance sheet. It'll have assets and it'll have liabilities. You can just take the assets of crypto and put it onto the asset side of the balance sheet and trade them from there. Again, depends on the jurisdiction where you are, but most of the time that tends to be the case, and the AI is going to give you all the details on that. So, as an individual, as a business, you should also always be on the lookout for something called tax loss harvesting. Whenever you are at a loss, you have the ability to tax loss harvest. This doesn't apply in certain jurisdictions. So again, check to make sure that this is legit. But the idea of tax loss harvesting is that if you have losses that you're sitting on, okay, let's say you put in 10,000, right? And you go down and, well, first of all, if you put in 10,000 and you're going to make 10,000 and you take it out, you'd pay something like 30% and you'd lose $3,000 out of that, right? But now let's imagine you put in 10,000 and it goes down to 3,000. You're a $7,000 loss. In a lot of places, what you can do is you can then sell the asset and rebuy the asset right away. So let's say you put in 10,000 into Bitcoin, it goes down. Welcome to the normal journey of crypto. And you're down to $7,000. In any tax year, you can sell that amount, and you can sell $3,000 of Bitcoin and buy $3,000 of Bitcoin. At the sale, that creates a taxable event, which means you have $7,000 that you can write off on your taxes against the gains that you make later on. Again, that's harvesting the loss of the taxes, and that's making it back by not getting taxed later on. You can use, in the US, you can offset $3,000 against your income, and the rest of it has to be offset against your earnings from assets. But when you're down, it doesn't just mean, oh, I'm down, I gotta wait to get back. It means you may be able to tax loss harvest. Plus, if you're down, like what a lot of people did now is they were down 50%. a lot of people were down 50% when Bitcoin was at 91K, when I gave that major sell alert before the giant waterfall that we had. And they were like, oh, I'm 50% down. If I sell it now, I'll lose it. And I was like, well, if you sell it now and leave, you will lose it. But if you sell it now and buy it much lower, which is the probability says it's going to happen, then you will get more crypto and you'll have write-offs to put against how much you earn. And when you sell one Bitcoin at 90K and it goes down to 45K and you get 2 Bitcoin, then the 2 Bitcoin runs up faster and makes more cash. So in the end, it's way better. You make more money that way. And then the day you sell, when your 2 Bitcoin becomes worth $200,000 and you have, $45,000 to $200,000, you have $155,000 of gains. You can take that amount of money that you had lost and write it off against the taxes, which means you don't pay tax on that amount. Okay. This is a great technique that gets used. For this, you want to use something like Coinly with a K, because we don't like spelling anything normally here. Coinly allows you to do tax loss harvesting, allows special, it allows your taxes to be done instantaneously without having to do a whole bunch of stuff. It works with all the different regulators out there. It gives you a properly printed tax report. You can also then modify the tax accounting method you use, so you can have FIFO or HIFO or LIFO or some other IFO to optimize the taxes according to what you need. But in there, you can sign up, and every year you go, hey, give me recommendations on what I could do to my portfolio, and it'll say that you can go and sell something and rebuy it for your jurisdiction. Coinly works for most jurisdictions, yes. Yeah. So that's a trick. Tax loss harvest. Use Coinly to be able to tell you what to tax loss harvest and how to account for it properly, and make sure your money gets made. Now, you can do this as a person or as a company. This is a big trick that gets used. Okay, so now, does that all make sense? Fantastic. It makes perfect sense. Now, my back kind of hurts. I got to get a new chair. It's on the way. Okay. So now we're going to take a mid 1 hour break for a few minutes. You guys can think of more questions and post them here. We're going to hang out for a bit, listen to another song, and we're going to do another masterclass in investing. Just to be annoying. This is also, I realized I want this to be a test of the people who have the patience to last until the end. And this, I mean, excellent. All these videos, everything. When you make a video in YouTube, they say, okay, first 3 seconds, you got to hook the people. So I make sure I waste the first 3 seconds doing nothing. I even leave 3 seconds at the beginning. And then they say, within the first minute, you got to make sure that the people stay. So I make sure I do everything so that the first minute is just, hey guys, how you doing? Right? Because the whole point is, if you can't watch a video for a few hours and you don't have the patience to last a few hours, you don't have the patience to hang out with us for months and months and months while nothing happens. And then you don't have the patience to be here for the years and years and years that it requires to generate true proper wealth. So part of that journey is just us listening to another song and hanging out. And I honestly, I just got to stand up. I realize I sit for too long for these things, and then my back starts hurting, and my back is more important to me than rambling on for an hour or 2 hours straight. So if you think about what we're doing in this journey, is we're going well beyond the limits of what we know and the world that we've lived within. For many of you, this is actually part of the journey where you've learned a lesson in the markets, and now you're at the place where you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do it the right way. For many other people, many of these things are so far outside the bounds of what you've done before that it's annoying, right? Okay, so if I set up a new company, how do I transfer my crypto to the company? Is it a case of just speaking to Kraken? No, like Kraken is your exchange, right? Kraken is just going to set it up and say, do whatever you want with it. If you start asking them questions like that, they're actually going to think that you're a novice investor who doesn't know what they're doing and might red flag you. The way you normally do it is you would talk to your accountant for the company. You would ask the accountant, hey, how do we put these assets on the books of the company and how can I trade them within the company? Then there's an agreement that gets made within the company. So in Bali, we would do something like a shareholders agreement that is signed by the shareholders to say this, this shareholder is putting this many assets into the company, and they're going to, they're going to either get shares back of the company or they're going to get a loan agreement that's going to be created so the person can get paid back for the assets that they have, right? But that's, again, going to depend on what you do as far as the structuring itself. So yeah, instead of listening to a song, I can just stand up and do this. This is actually way better. Okay, so now imagine you've done that. Imagine you have learned how to tax loss harvest and you're thinking of setting up a business. Okay, well, how are we doing it? Here's the example of what we're doing as Excellency to set up this business. Right now, Excellency is being set up, has been set up as what's called a PTPMA in Bali. And a PTPMA is basically just a foreign-owned corporation within Indonesia. The reason why we did it is because it's really easy and it's really nice to run it like this. It gives us 0.21% tax on all sales for crypto. Companies here have no capital gains. People here have no capital gains on crypto. Even more importantly, the reason why I really did it is because we're friends with the Indonesian regulators, right? Because of FarmScent, because of the stablecoin we're making. We're friends with them. It's a really good relationship. And when you set up companies, having a relationship with the regulators is very important. Now, I knew that was a temporary stopgap because now we have really big investors and family offices and the really, serious people who are interested in Excellency. They're interested in sending the amounts of money that can't even flow through the financial system of Indonesia, like big money, right? I mean, it just takes a long time. It's a lot more work. So we're moving to Cayman. We're restructuring everything in Cayman. What that means is we're going to be a corporation there with 0% corporate tax. And they have a really good regulatory environment in Cayman where they have defined crypto properly. Cayman is the gold standard of funds, even though we are not a fund, because we don't custody anything, because we don't trade futures, because we don't do any kind of risky activity, and we're actually much lower risk than most of the things that they normally see. It's very easy for us to pass the regulatory kind of checks and get the gold standard ticket. So we're moving over there, right? Now, if you're a big player and you're thinking of doing the same thing, we'll be happy to guide you through the same thing and give you all of those resources to do it. So that's the big pivot that's happening. Now, part of that pivot are these custom agreements, because once we go over there, we can issue these bespoke agreements for the people where it's viable for us to do. And for each country, we would have different agreements that get set up. So that's to say, in one country, a software service agreement that works a certain way is deductible. So we'll make sure that we provide you an agreement that works the right way. In another country, it might be that is deductible. In the end, we just make it so that on your side, it's much simpler for you to be able to do. And for our side, the battery gets 0.21% more, because the 0.21% goes a long way. It's just better to set it up, and there's better security and better jurisdictional treatment. Now, I'll give you a secret. I've just been standing here thinking about, should I give you the secret? And I will give you the secret. Fuck it, I'll just say it. I just built a national defense strategy for Indonesia, for the regulators, for OJK. I'm not under any kind of NDA or anything, so I can just say this. Part of that strategy, they are looking for models of how to bring capital to Indonesia in a way that's secure, that's better than the way that it's been done. Our stablecoin is obviously one of the big paths, that is the way that money can come into Indonesia unencumbered, without fuckery, instantaneously, without banks having to do a whole bunch of stuff. That money can come in and interact with the Indonesian economy instantaneously and without friction, which right now is not available. And it provides full transparency, so the investors or the person transferring can see what's going on. But excellency has also been presented as a model, because they're looking for ways to build infrastructure so that people can invest without their money being stolen, right? Like when you think about what's happening with BlackRock, people trusted BlackRock, people trusted Blackstone, people trusted a lot of things. UBS Bank, people gave them a ton of money and said, invest it into places for me. And they said, great, billions of dollars, great. Now people are like, we want our money back. And they're like, sorry, which money? I'm like, that money I gave you, that money, we want our money back. And they're like, yeah, no, sorry. There was this fine print that says we're not going to give you the money back. So people can't get their money back. That is the scam of the old system. We have built a system with excellency where that can't happen. Nobody can stop you from taking your own money out, especially not us. We have no rights on that. So we've now presented this to the regulators. But instead of just being a centralized system like this, where we're interacting with global exchanges and stuff, that model is already here. That model is already available. They already know about it. We've presented a decentralized version of that system, where down the road, Excellency Bali, or whatever you want to call it, will end up being a decentralized platform where you'll be able to connect your own wallet to the platform. You will still continue to custody things. Things will still sit inside of your wallet, but we will connect it to something like Hyperliquid and trade on Hyperliquid exactly the same way that we're doing now. The money will show up in your account exactly the way that it's going to do now and does now. And it's going to be a decentralized version. So Excellency Bali is going to become that. It's going to basically become a decentralized version of what we have today. Then the current excellency, which is that has exchanges rather than decentralized exchanges, is going to go to Cayman. And both of them will be able to do custom agreements, because even in Bali we could do it, but we need to get regulatory sandbox access. So when I spoke at G20, I had made a recommendation that we make regulatory sandboxes. That got adopted. Now, OJK, the securities regulator of Indonesia, is willing to give us a regulatory sandbox access. I don't want to take the current structure and make it complicated and put it in there, so I'm moving that offshore. And the local structure will be part of that regulatory sandbox, and then we'll be able to play the game much better, and you'll have access to multiple different things. Now, as a business, doing decentralized stuff tends to be more complicated. It's much simpler to just actually set up things so that it happens on an exchange, it's registered under a certain name, the KYC is under the business. That allows completely clean kind of record keeping and proof of source of funds. There's a lot of benefits to being in the exchanges themselves. Plus, the exchanges are where you convert to your local currency and get it put back into your bank account, which is kind of the whole point. So many people haven't even done that. So many people haven't taken money out and put it back in their bank account. So going through that whole loop, it's simpler through the exchanges. Decentralized exchanges give you a little bit more benefit because you self-custody. So now, as an American, we've already spoken about this. This is a more detailed version of the conversation that we had around leaving. Okay. Thanks for being here, Orden. This is a more detailed version that, like, you'd have to follow this process to leave. You can You're covered everywhere in the world by American taxes, no matter where you go. But if you leave and stay outside for more than 330 days, you have $132,900 of exclusion, and you can remotely manage your business and be able to do stuff. And this is the transition process. You can pause this and look at it yourself as you wish. Now, the next piece we're going to look at is understanding like offshore structures. A lot of times people go, "Ooh, I'm just going to set up offshore," and misunderstand what that even means, right? You can't just move your taxes offshore and not pay taxes. Remember that. Like taxes will follow you wherever you go, right? If you live in a country and you try to move your money offshore just for taxes, a lot of countries don't like that. Some countries you can do that, but for most countries you can't do that. But putting your assets inside of a vehicle that is not you is very beneficial, because as you make money, a bunch of things happen. People want to steal it from you. People want to take it from you. People might sue you for it. Some people have spouses who will take it. There's family members who try to take it. Whatever. There's a bunch of reasons why it might happen, right? You might have liabilities on you because something happened somewhere else and you have your whatever. So putting it inside of a vehicle that is not you also protects it from being taken from you. Done the right way, it segregates your taxes. So if somebody tries to come after you and take what you have nothing. The business has it. And the business and you are two different entities. So that's another huge benefit to moving things offshore. So there are a bunch of different tactics that get used in this process of exiting, okay? Like when you want to leave, and I also didn't put this one on here, so let me just put that onto my list. When you want to leave or reduce your taxes, there's a bunch of tricks that are used by the elites that most people don't understand. There's the common buy, borrow, die trick that is used, which is to say, when you imagine Elon, the richest man in the world, and you think he has billions of dollars, he actually doesn't have billions of dollars, right? He doesn't have it in an account. It's just basically assets that go up and down, and they're valued at some amount. He paid less than 3% taxes one of the years that I looked at. How did he do that? What they do is they don't sell their assets to buy things. They use the assets that they have as collateral and then borrow against it and use that borrowed money to be able to spend on their lifestyle. So this buy, borrow, die trick is a common trick that a lot of people use. So instead of selling things, let's bring this back over here. Instead of selling things and getting a loss, they just sit on the crypto and then use it as collateral and put it into a loan, maybe on some place like Aave, and then use that money to spend it on their lifestyle. Debt is not taxed. That's a key thing to remember. Debt is not taxed. Asset sales are taxed. Getting debt and spending debt is not a taxable event, right? Now, on one side, this is great because if you're sitting on a bunch of assets, it's great. But this also requires you to buy some assets and ride it all the way up and not sell them, and ride it all the way down and not sell them, and ride it all the way up and not sell them. For me, I'm like, if an asset's going to do 20x, I'd rather sell it, pay some tax on it, and then move to Bali and make sure I never have to pay tax again. And then when it drops, I want 20 times the assets rather than doing like this. This also comes with the risk that you're giving your assets to somebody else. And one of the best ways to lose all of your money is to give it to Celsius or some other place, FTX, Luna. People gave all their cash to Luna for 20% so they could spend the 20% to lose 100% of it. So for me, this is not a good strategy, but it is a strategy that they use to be able to reduce the amount of taxes that they pay. Another trick that gets used is called the IP trick. This is what Google's doing. Okay. What they're doing is they take their business and they structure it in a way where they say, okay, I earned a bunch of money in this one jurisdiction. Okay. Let's say they earned a bunch of money in the US, in a high tax country, and they would have paid a bunch of taxes there. What Google does is Google actually has a business set up in Ireland. This thing is just talking about Cayman because it just remembers Cayman. This is the other thing about AIs. When you talk to them about one thing and you ask them to make stuff, they just put it into everything. But I didn't have time to change it. But just imagine that this is Ireland, okay? There's a company set up in Ireland that holds the IP for Google. When they make profits inside of their country, they pay their profits to the IP holding company, and they say this is the payment for the IP. And then this original company doesn't have profits, which means they don't pay taxes. Same thing, they're deducting the IP cost against their taxes. That license fee structure allows them to break through the tax wall, and they reduce their taxes to basically zero. This is called the IP trick. This works. It works very well for companies that can prove the value of their IP. That's the key thing with this one, that you have to be able to prove that the value of your IP is equivalent to what you're saying it is. And just randomly, a person doing that loophole's been closed a long time ago. And using loopholes to try to reduce taxes is just not smart. So when you see all these things on YouTube, other places are like, oh, there's this novel trick that I know. That it's like, no, bro, like that's stupid. Just because Google's doing it doesn't mean I can do it. Right? Google also runs the world. Can I run the world? No, they won't let me. I tried Googling it, and Google said no, I can't run the world. But that's another trick that gets used. But here's one of my favorite tricks that isn't even a trick. This is a strategy that allows you to be able to reduce your taxes on exit. Okay. You need to leave the country if you're living in a shitty country. First of all, like if you're living in cities right now, you're fucked. You're just fucked. What do you realize what just happened? Oil spiked. Oil shipments have fallen off of a cliff. Oil is also tied to fertilizer production. So fertilizer shipments have dropped off of a cliff. The next harvest is going to be fucked. The upcoming harvest of whatever staple foods you eat is going to be fucked globally. The shipping cost of it has gone through the roof. Food is going to become more scarce on the shelves. We're about to have a Slovid where supply chains are getting messed up. Cities require you to be able to ship food in, and expect that breakdown to happen, and expect to spend way more money for less and less food. So get out of cities, okay? Wherever you are, just get away from cities if you can. If you can't prepare for this somehow, mentally build society or build communities and relationships and stuff, get out of cities. But if you can, get out of your country if it's shit. Go, and I'm going to show you the countries where we can go to. But when you're exiting a country, many countries have an exit tax. Exit tax means that when you leave, the government wants their piece, which means whatever amount of unrealized gains you have, whatever amount of money you had made, they're going to mark it on the books as if you sold it the moment when you left, and they want their cut off the top. There's an exit tax. This exit tax is huge for many places like the US. Or if you're above 2 million, the exit tax is massive. If you're below 2 million, there's still a massive exit tax. If you made a bunch of money in crypto and then you leave, you're going to pay a massive tax. This is one of the few situations where the UK is amazing. I rarely say that sentence, but the UK is amazing. Because you can just leave. Right now, there's no exit tax. You can just get the fuck out. But let's imagine you bought $1 million of crypto, and now it's at $2 million. If you leave, that $1 million will be taxed. Okay? If in the States now you'll be at $2 million net worth, you'll be taxed extra. So that's the trap. You try to leave, you have to sell. In the US, up to $910,000, you don't get taxed for leaving with. above that, you will get taxed, and you have to pay a massive tax on it, right? If you leave during a bull market. But if you leave during a bear market, it works in your favor. Because if you time it so that you leave when your portfolio is down, the full market value of your portfolio drops below the cost basis, which means you have losses. Then you get to say, hey, I sell at that price, and not only do I not have to pay taxes on gains, I get deductions against my other asset income, so I can actually write it off and I can leave. Hopefully you have other assets. There's no wash rule in the US and many other places, so you can do this. You can still sell and rebuy the assets at the same price, so you can maintain the same amount. You sell, lock in the zero tax bill, exit the country, and then immediately rebuy. This basically happens within a day. Your exit tax bill is zero. You have a new cost basis. You come to Bali, you have a new cost basis. Here, they don't care about your cost basis. You know, Cayman doesn't care about your cost basis. British Virgin Island doesn't care about your cost basis. Dubai doesn't care about your cost basis. Dubai just cares about bombs right now. And your energy is yours. So that when you exiting with losses allows you to be able to not pay anything on your exit if you're in a country like that. So that's a huge trick that consultants charge $20,000 to tell you. I swear to God, like when I was trying to figure this out for myself back in the day, I talked to a guy, and he first of all, he wouldn't tell me all this stuff. Then I was like, okay, well, how much is your package? He's like $20,000 to start. I was like, okay, to start. What does the end look like? It was like $130,000. Makes sense. If you're going to save millions of dollars, 130 makes sense. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, what does this guy know that's worth that much? When he told me this trick, I was like, dude, just that alone will save people millions of dollars. And I can understand why you're charging this much. But it kind of got on my nerves, because I was like, so you guys are just charging this much money to tell people the basic shit so they can escape from their families? No wonder the world doesn't work right, because everybody is, treating wisdom as this locked up thing. So what I have done is, firstly, fulfill the promise that I had given you before. I have created a tax dude, like we talked about in the other call. I made a tax dude that knows all of these secrets, or at least the ones that I know. And I've downloaded it all into this thing. It's tuned so that it speaks our language. It understands the strategies. It understands excellency. It understands everything that's happening in the world. And the link to this is going to be in the description of this video. But for those of you guys that are here, here's the link. It's a Gemini gem. And you have to sign in to Gemini to be able to use it. But I'm going to show you how to use it right now. The first thing you want to do is you're going to click that link and you're going to show up here. There we go. Now you guys can see this, right? You can see the Sovereign Wealth Architect. Sometimes until I draw, it doesn't show up. Okay, thank you. And yes, Jess, you must sell when you exit. I mean, you must sell on paper when you exit, but selling and rebuying at the same time creates that taxable event. So what you're going to do is you're going to log into this thing, log into Google, and then when you click that link, it'll show up like this. Then if you have the option, make sure you select Pro and use the Pro as much as you can. If you run out of credits, then go to Thinking. If you run out of credits, just give it a bit of time and go back to Pro. Fast is only for quick answers, but it's not as cohesive in its explanations of what's going on. So here, you want to sit and you want to explain your situation thoroughly. Now, before you even explain the situation thoroughly, I would recommend you talk to it. Because if you sit there and you type things out, you won't talk to it the way that you would speak about it, right? So you could just hit this button. You can say use microphone, and you go, hey, I'm an American and I have a house that's worth about $600,000 in Florida, in Miami. It's a really nice place. And my mom lives in Florida, so I want to make sure that I can take care of her for as long as I like. I'm a therapist, so I work remotely with a lot of my clients, and I earn good money from that. The clients are from all around the world, but I've thought about the fact that I can kind of work remotely from wherever I like, and I don't want to keep paying, so much tax if I don't have to. I also just want to improve life, and I think the world isn't going in the right direction, even though, Florida seems like a good place. I just don't want to be here in the middle of World War III. I have a bunch of crypto. I have about $500,000 in crypto that I bought, but I've never sold, and I don't even know how to do any of that stuff. I have it inside of XLNC already, and I heard Sim talk about something about setting up businesses and stuff, so I don't really know how that works, but I would be interested to do stuff like that. And I just want to be able to spend time with my mom and be able to come back and see my kids. Beyond that, yeah, what do you think? So I just sat there and downloaded, like I'm talking to a friend, just a big download. There's no way you would sit down and type it out like this or this quickly, right? You give it context. Step number one, you give it context. Explain your situation thoroughly and use voice typing. Then you hit go. Then you stand up. Stretch a bit. Enjoy the fact that you don't have to pay $20,000 for this. Jump around a little bit. Then it talks about all the details. Hey, you've done this brilliantly. You're a U.S. citizen, so you have a unique layer of friction. Okay. Here's your foreign earned income strategy. You can do this to be able to have your income covered. You can have different LLCs set up. And then you can say, okay, well, you ask it a bunch of questions. What about this? What about this detail? I'm thinking that. Then you go, okay, can you just turn all of this into a cohesive strategy that I can execute? Stretch again. Jump around for a second. That we live in the future where all the complexity in the world doesn't cost us all the money in the world. It just gets done. In the end, you want a step-by-step strategy for your jurisdiction, for your specific situation. And you can sit there and have nuanced conversations around, what about this piece? What about this piece? How do I leave? Well, upon leaving, I got to fill out this document. What's that document? How does it work? Okay. What are we looking at here? Bam, 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 bam. Okay. It's recommending you come to Bali. It's always going to recommend you come to Bali. I'm trying to kidnap you guys slowly, to be honest. But it's going to, it's going to verify your specific situation. If you're not meant to come to Bali, it actually won't recommend you come to Bali. It just knows I like Bali. But in the end, it's going to give you a specific strategy that's going to be laid out. You can also say, turn this into a visual diagram and give me the details, and it'll have you do all this stuff. And then move to Bali and stop worrying about all this stuff. So that's the idea. We have an AI, and you can also ask it any questions around, hey, how does crypto get taxed in my country? How do I optimize the taxes as a person? How do I convert to a business? How do I right? So that is the basic gist of how to navigate this world. Now, any questions about that? We've already gone a decent bit into the coverage around taxes. I bet the questions will start to flow in later on, so we leave that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, okay, what specifically is going on with XLNC? Because as this shift is happening, I was thinking through, okay, how do we do this in a way that it works kind of mutually beneficially for everybody. And I'll honestly tell you the truth, like, I have spent every single penny that I had access to on FarmScent and Excellency. Frank said, this link leads me to Gemini, but not to Excellency Gemini. When you log in, you're gonna it's gonna go to Gemini, then you have to come back and click the link again, and then it takes you there. Like, try that. If you log in, then it just shows Gemini, then you come back and click the link again, and then it takes you back. It's a very stupid system. They don't have it set up properly. So I have spent, I always do this, right? I don't have plan Bs. I burn my boats every single time. That's just how I live. I have plan A, and plan B is to make plan A work. And I've spent every single penny that I could on FarmScent and on Excellency. I also make it so that most of the money is not accessible to me. So when I say accessible, that's what I mean, right? I would like to move Excellency over to Cayman today to make all of this happen. I can't, because it actually costs it costs 50 grand to set up. It costs another 50-ish to run it properly for the time being. That's why I haven't done it. I don't like asking for money. I don't like raising money. Even for FarmScent, you see how I raise money. All that goes to FarmScent, and I rarely mention it because I believe that things should just work on their own. Right now, I'll ask you guys for help. What we're doing is we are releasing an offer to everybody who is part of Excellency that in this transitionary process, we are going to raise $100,000 for Excellency. Anybody who puts in any amount of money into that raise gets 2 times that money deducted off of their fees when they come. So you already get to make more money in that process. Anybody who puts in more than $10,000 gets access to the bespoke tax agreements that we spoke about, because we have to pay the lawyers to get them drafted, and these Cayman lawyers are not exactly cheap. Everybody who does this also gets the benefit of knowing that they're helping out Excellency. You're also helping me out. You're helping out a bunch of other people with good karma, because they'll be able to access all of this stuff down the road. That is what we're doing. We are raising $100,000 to move Excellency to Cayman. Plus, anybody who puts in more than 10 will get priority access to the kind of investment rounds of things that come down the road. Like FarmScent came through. Now the stable coin is going to be next. And then the avatar phone system is going to be next. And there's a bunch of different opportunities that come. Anybody who participates gets that. Right now, we have been in our tiny little home. This is actually pretty close to how my house looks in Bali. That's been phase 1. Now we're going to the big vault in Cayman. And anybody who invests gets 2x multiplier on the fees. The platinum people get B2B agreements directly, or B2C agreements directly to be able to reduce their taxes. That is the roadmap ahead. All this stuff is showing the same stuff again. Oh yeah, and then there's a party happening at the end of this year, because I already know all of this stuff is done. So everybody who participates in this round, let's say, no matter what size of participation you have a guaranteed ticket to the party that's happening at the end of the year, where we'll hold probably a boat trip in Bali for us to go to different islands and have an Excellency gathering. And as part of a thank you for helping us at this stage, you will get a ticket guaranteed on that boat. Well, maybe not guaranteed on the boat. Let me be careful with my words. It'll be guaranteed that you can actually be part of that party, and you'll have a seat booked for you there. So there we go. That's what we're up to. Any questions about that? Amazing. Just lost my connection. Can no longer see any previous chats. Yeah, we're just talking about the next growth of Excellency. So There will be another video that explains all of the details. The way you sign up is you basically, if you already have a concierge group with us, you can just message in the concierge group. You can also DM me directly and say, hey, I'd like to sign up for that. I'd like to be a part of it. There's no minimum amounts right now. The only minimum is that 10,000 is the floor for setting up the custom agreements right away. It'll probably be less than that down the road once we have everything structured and set up and agreements formatted in a certain way. To copy and paste them down the road should be simpler. But the minimum for the custom agreements, custom tax agreements, is 10K. Otherwise, whatever amount you'd like. But in the end, it's like whatever amount you put in, you get twice that back on the fees, right? So you get to double your money that way. I was gonna initially make it like a double your money offer, and then I was like, that is the scammiest thing on the fucking planet. Yeah. No, you're not doubling your money. What you're doing is you're taking a bit of risk on excellency. You're saying, okay, I believe in the business. I want to be one of the angel investors in the business. It's a good pitch, put in money, liquidity comes back right away on the very next exit. If that amount is already, the amount of fees that you would have been charged. The custom tax agreements allow you to be able to deduct it on your taxes. If you need help transitioning to a business, we're happy to do that as well. What does the doubling mean? So it's like, okay, let's imagine you put in $10,000, right? You say, hey, here's $10,000 that I'm contributing to this raise. Let's say you have $100,000 in excellency right now. When we double it and we go to $200,000 and we exit, we're going to send you an invoice that says, hey, we made you $100,000. Check your account. You owe us $20,000 of that as commission. But we're going to say you gave us $10,000 before, which means we're going to deduct that $20,000 off of your fees because we owe you $20,000 of fees deducted. So you're paying $10,000 to have $20,000 deducted off of your commissions, off of your fees that you would pay. Sorry, I might be a bit daft, but I don't get the double money off fees thingy. What does the doubling mean? Does that make sense now? That if you put in $1 now and later on you owe us $2 for the fees, we'll deduct the $2 and make sure you keep your $2, right? How long will those agreements be available? Until the 100K is set. Like once the raise hits $100,000, it gets, how long will those agreements work for? I don't know if that's the question you're asking. So this offer to be able to do this is only going to be open for the $100,000 raise. After that, it's not going to be available to anybody else to be able to reduce their fees, right? The agreements that get created, the tax agreements that get created, those will be locked in for the people that they get created for forever, because those are the agreements that we get between excellency and the people who are investing, basically. Does that make sense? Sounds like it makes sense. More or less. I know that this was going to be a little bit complicated along the way anyway. Wait. Okay, waiting. Well, just think about it like this. Tax agreements. So it's saying that, are they available now? No, because we're set up in Indonesia. And for me to do it in Indonesia, I can create those agreements here as well. But there is no regulatory infrastructure for me to make them within. That if I make them now, they're just private agreements that exist within between a company and the people who are investing in it, or are participating within it. I don't like that. Then the liability is on the company. There's no clear regulatory structure to do it within. They will be available once we go to Cayman. Basically, what that means is all of these assets, everything, the assets being the technology of the company, gets transferred to Cayman. It takes about a month to do it properly, but I expect about two-ish months for it to happen. That's why I'm starting now before we have some major exits. Then as soon as we move it to Cayman, then each one of the people who participate are going to get contacted privately, and we say, hey, you're in this country. Would you like a private agreement? Is it with your company? Are you an individual? Would you like to transition to a business? Would you like help with that? So on and so forth. And then whoever needs to have those agreements, we would draft custom agreements according to their jurisdiction with them, which would overwrite the agreement that the investment management agreement that you have created with XLNC at the outset. Those agreements, like once that's signed, which says you are now working with XLNC as a software service provider, let's say a software system service provider. Here, it's a SaaS service, which is software as a service. Then you take that agreement and you give it to your accountant. You say, look, I have a new software company that I've hired. It does this service for me. I hold the money and it's managing it. Then when the invoice gets issued to you, it's a software service agreement invoice that you are paying the amount that you're paying because it's a performance-based agreement. Again, this is going to vary depending on which jurisdiction you're in, but this is a performance-based payment for a service from a software company that is providing you a service. You can take that and give it to your accountant and say, hey, we have this company. Here's the cost to deduct for the business. And that deducts the cost, so you don't end up paying taxes on the amount that you're paying now. And that agreement continues forever, for as long as you like, basically. I hope that makes sense. All right. Any other questions? Now, a few questions that some people have asked that I'll just ask again is people say, okay, can we invest into the company of XLNC? My answer is no. Normally, when you invest into the company and you get shares of the company. Firstly, the shares of a company are only valuable for when you can sell the shares and make more money from them. So it's locking up liquidity for a long period of time. I'm not interested in having investors like that. I like to wholly own my companies. I like to even run them myself. If I had another 100 grand to throw at it, I would. Right now, for me to go get that, I would have to dig into places which I'm supposed to not touch, which means I don't have it, which means I'm going to act like I don't have it. And I'm just going to sit here and wait. If we don't get to 100 grand, what we're going to do is we're just going to wait until the next exit. Now we're at $11.6 million. I just make a few more. I'm making a new prospectus right now for these high net worth investors. We end up at somewhere close to 20 million within the next few months. One exit of profits on that is enough to then cover all of this stuff going forward. So if we don't raise enough, we will actually just wait until that moment to cover the rest of the cost and make this stuff happen anyway. Yeah, will this be explained in more detail? Yes, there's going to be a different presentation and different deck. This is just me introducing you guys to it and seeing what kind of appetite we actually have for it as well, right? Because partially I did not expect that we would have this much money show up in the middle of a bear market. I was like, oh, we're going to have less than 10 mil probably, and I can just keep the structure here and make it all work. And with this whole agreement, the tax agreement idea, as soon as it came up, I realized we should move it sooner than later. And Cayman is the gold standard for us to make sure that when the really big players want to participate and their lawyers come and they want to do all the DD on it, it's way simpler for them to see Cayman as a place. But yes, there will be another talk to be able to do this stuff. Another question that comes up from people is like, if I want to move myself to a business, where should I do it? How should I do it? There's no one answer to that question, but places like if you don't live in the US and you're not an American citizen or a resident, US LLC out of Delaware works really well if you want to be able to generate revenue from online sources, which is to say, if you take Stripe payments and other things, then you need to have a jurisdiction where you can actually generate that revenue seamlessly and connect to these different global platforms. So an LLC out of Delaware works relatively well, but it does come with the US exposure that you expect that if the US changes something, which they change their mind every 40 seconds, you're exposed to that. I like Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a relatively inexpensive to set up. They're pretty hands-off about the stuff that they do. Money moves well through Hong Kong, and it's unlikely that Hong Kong changes their laws, but it's exposed to the China risk. British Virgin Islands is pretty good. It's relatively inexpensive to set up. The banking is solid enough, pretty solid to be able to set up things, and their regulatory oversight is much less. So they're not bugging you about stuff all the time. Cayman is the gold standard. So if you want to go to Cayman, it's amazing, but it's a process. You got to have relationships, and if you're doing crypto, then you don't get banks the right way. So for that, we have friends who have private banks in Gibraltar, Switzerland, and a few other places. So you could set up there and then let us know, and we can help you. No, we can help you. We can connect you with the people that can actually help you set up the bank accounts in the right way. What's the best banks you would recommend for crypto in the UK? That's a tough one. What was that one that my friend used? This is a question for AI, honestly. Like, there's this one bank. It's okay. When it comes to banks, you have to understand that the same bank in different jurisdictions behaves differently. Like, Chase is great for a lot of stuff, but when you go to, like, Chase in UK or Chase in these jurisdictions that don't like crypto across the board, they block you and they have problems. HSBC works well in certain jurisdictions and hates crypto in the UK. It was RBS. RBS is okay, but there's been people who've been blocked through RBS as well when they're trying to actually send money out to their own stuff. Revolut works well enough. Revolut is good as long as you're using things that don't freak out their AIs. Because if you do something that freaks out Revolut's AI, they're actually more tyrannical about blocking you from different things. Honestly, just ask the AI for which one is the most compliant bank. There was one that we had to move the client to get them there. But even then, the UK is becoming much, much more, because they see capital flight happening to crypto rather than just people exiting the country, right? Amazing. Okay. So if we don't have any more questions, we will close this thing off with some thoughts and a song. Yeah. So, interesting. So far, RBS has been cool. However, still haven't made proper profits. So this is the places where you're going to see issues with banking with crypto. Firstly, when you try to move your funds to a crypto exchange is the moment you're going to realize the money actually doesn't belong to you. That's usually when people realize it, Your bank is going to either block you from being able to do it, or it's going to let you send it if it's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 9,000. But try sending 100,000 to an exchange and they're going to block you. Or at the least, they're going to call you and say, "Are you okay?" Blink twice if you're being coerced to do this, right? And even if you're legitimately just trying to send it to yourself, they'll do their best to block you from being able to take your own money out. If they let you do that, then your bank is great. If the bank just lets you move $100,000 to wherever, especially to crypto, that's what we mean when we say, okay, a bank likes crypto. And it's very rare that banks are like that. Only certain banks are. Okay. Somehow you got it into crypto. Maybe in chunks, maybe in one big go, you got it into crypto. You make a bunch of money in crypto. Then you try to send it back to your account. And that's when banks really freak out. They really freak out. Like, you would imagine a bank receiving your money should be like, they should be jumping for joy for you to send them $1 million. You take your 100,000, you go, you play the game right, you win, you bring the million back and you put it back into your bank account. And you go, "Hey, I'm giving you $1 million so you can make money from it." They will freak out. They'll look at you like, "Okay, where did the money come from?" Well, you can see the transaction. You can see where it's coming from. It's coming from that exchange. What is the exchange? It's a crypto exchange. Now you automatically get flagged for money laundering. Like, not automatically get flagged for money laundering, but you automatically get a slight raising in the risk profile according to the AIs to say, now we have to verify that they have a legitimate source of funds. And a lot of times you would have had to take money out of one bank and go over there and make money, and you might be putting it in another bank. Even when the banks are transferring themselves, like you take out money from the bank, make money, bring it back and put it in the same bank, they will ask for proof of source of funds, especially with larger amounts. They'll say, where did you make this money? You say, crypto. They say, give us all the details. And then people go, oh, well, I took it and I put it into this decentralized pool on blah, blah, blah blockchain. And I locked it up and I staked it. And then I took the liquid tokens and I staked them and I farmed this thing. And then I got the shit coin and it blew up and I made a bunch of money. And that's how I made the money. And when you explain that to a bank, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This sounds like a scam. I think this is a scam, you know? If you just take the money, put it into the exchange, hold on to it, sell it, and bring it back and put it in the account. You just take the record from the exchange and you give it to them. You go, look, here. Money go here, money go in, money sit, money make, money come, money out. Okay? It's all connected. Here's my tax form for it. It's clean. And they go, okay, cool. We'll let you put the money back. If your proof of source of funds is complicated and it goes to many different places, it'll blacklist you. That's why we only do simple shit and we bring it back and we put it inside. Yes, Revolut has been known to block withdrawals. You can put money in, but you can't take money out many, many times. And when you freak out the AI, there's not humans to talk to. With banks, you want to have banks where you actually have people to talk to. Santander has a monthly restriction. Most of them have monthly restrictions for what you can put into crypto. Are you covering the Katana launch? Yes, we are. This is just me finishing off this topic. Then we go into the post. For people with multiple residencies or passports, what type of risk can you see? If you register one account in one residency and a second account with a different residency simultaneously in the same tax year? That's a good question. If you do it with the same platform, that is not recommended because the platform will flag you at some point and try to block both of your accounts. If you have it with different platforms, like you have it with Bybit and with Kraken, then it's fine. Shouldn't be any issue. The concern or the thing to be aware of nowadays is when you register with the jurisdiction, the exchange is now reporting you to that jurisdiction with whatever activity you do on the platform. So just know that, right? That the reports are going to go out to the different jurisdictions. But registering with multiple residencies, yeah, people do it all the time. I mean, that's fine. Katana launch. What's going on with this Katana? So the whole point of the Katana has been that the world needs to go through an insane volatility event. The insaner the event, the better it is for us. The bet we made again and again and again is that something crazy is going to happen. When I make that bet, it is not obvious at all that something crazy is going to happen. That's why we make that bet. See, when you make that bet, the farther out from what the less obvious it looks when you make that bet, the more money you make. So when we were back here, in the good old days, back in the day, in October, right here, we made the bet that something insane is going to happen and got out October 3rd, which was right here, October 3rd. Okay. We got out there expecting that something crazy is going to happen. It happened right here. It doesn't look so bad on this one. But if you look at it, let's say on XRP, it was right there. right? Something insane happened. We got in there, caught the Katana here. This was clearly big enough to be caught, right? A move like that is so obvious. Then made some profits, and we got out on the 25th. Right here. From here to here, made a bunch of profits and got out there. Recently, anybody who was sitting inside, I said we should get out here because we're headed for some kind of waterfall. That was the day that I issued the sell alert there. We've had this insane waterfall, but this was not big enough to actually be the Katana. Because for on one side, this entire pattern was saying, okay, if we have the next waterfall, that shouldn't be the bottom. There should be another waterfall, right? And that's basically playing out as we speak. But at some point, there's going to be the bottom forming Katana. Now, the way we know that is like this. Oh, I just got the notification for the covering Katana launch message. The way we know that is this. The volatility spikes to levels where it looks like the world is ending. And those are the best Katanas. Like the best Katanas on earth are the ones where you have a spike like this. This was COVID. Okay, that's the COVID spike. This is the yen panic. And this is the Trump crash. This Katana right here was the 1010 crash because it only showed up on crypto. We are now heading to those levels. We're getting close to those levels. Or at least we're in the danger zone of those levels. We should now see one hell of a spike. One bananas spike. That is going to be the one that we catch. My spidey senses are going off like crazy. When I made the bet, I knew something like this would show up. Pre-war, The fact that this has been pushing up like this, that volatility has been making this kind of consistent push upwards, looks much more like, stuff that happens back here, which is like when volatility starts to kind of do this, it looks small on this chart, but when it was happening live, volatility had been going down for a while, then it turned, then it started to actually make a decent move, and then we had this massive COVID crash. Right now, if you look at what's going on with the war and how the world is moving, it seems like the war needs more support. Americans need to get behind it. If they don't, then Trump loses the next elections. The way to get Americans really behind things is to cause something massive. Something massive just happens magically, right when it needs to. Is to cause something massive. Volatility in the US is already preparing for something massive. And I mean something massive. I don't know if it's whatever. I'll put in the group the things that I thought it would be, but it's something insane. I'm not going to guess at what it is because I would just be guessing. But this is now signaling that we're headed for something major. But even more than that, when the bond market tells you, that's when you know, no. Okay? Like if you had to look at it like this, what was this? That was something. This was the Trump crash, and the yen panic doesn't show up on this, but this was the Trump crash. Now we've had this insane pop, which is saying that something should happen going forward. For me, the way I look at it is like, the event that needs to happen should happen at a time when it is going to be the most valuable to make the markets do what they need to do. Right now, the markets are all teetering on the edge, and something has to happen that is so major that the Fed drops rates, that all the expectations of, the economy going one way get violated, that so much support happens for Trump that, everybody just believes that this war has to be done. Logically thinking through kind of those probabilities, it's likely that it's going to be that Iran did something to the US. That is what justifies the war. That is what increases all of the chaos. That is what gets the Americans behind this war. That is also the thing that they use to print all of this money, and that major real life event is used as the cover for them to be able to, go into the next stage of printing. But this is a signal of what's coming up ahead. And then now that we have some distance to this, when Korea and Asia and Germany and China, when all of them start to have volatility that looks like once in a generation style volatility, that's when we know something crazy is happening. Like, this is unheard of volatility happening in Korea. And Korea is like a canary in the coal mine. So Japan has basically had COVID level volatility. Korea has had generational volatility show up. China still hasn't had it explode in the same way. This is India. Indian volatility is now getting up to the levels which is already the tops of previous large crashes, and then is already headed into COVID territory. Germany has gone into world-ending volatility. It's still heading up, but it's going to end up at COVID levels at some point. So the plan is that we are headed for some kind of major spike. In that major spike, we're going to trigger the Katana. Now, when that happens, the requirement is that we should have a major spike and top out on that spike. Especially on the US indices, we should have a massive spike and we should top out on that spike. So like in the Trump crash, right here, we had the kind of upticks and things were going up, and then all of a sudden we had this insane run up. Now, this was a Friday. This was a Monday. Okay? This was a Friday. This was a Monday. That's also just part of this game of how they do it. So when we see that insane volatility pump on a Friday, and then whatever the event is seems to be playing out on the weekend, and we get to the Monday and we see what happens on a Monday. On the Monday, it's usually the kind of finishing off of the event. So that Mondays usually tend to be the top, but again, we'll see what happens. The point is not to just buy right when this happens. It's to wait and see what happened in all the other markets, all the other global markets, and then what's happening in the US market, and try to catch somewhere in this candle. Now, if we miss it, we catch this candle. If we miss that, we catch this candle. So like in the end, it's not like you get a bad price. It's just you try to catch a candle of the peak volatility of the event itself happening. The speed of the events is speeding up. So this was yen panic. It was just literally in one day. It was a 40-minute event where a company. So you know what actually happened? In this event, a company hired a satellite that was used to feed weather data into the commodities oracle, which is just a computer system that collects data. Somebody hired a company for $40 million, and they hired a satellite for $40 million that was crucial at sending this data. They then tilted this satellite a little bit so that the data looked wrong and the weather data came in as completely fucked up. That fucked up weather data went down into the oracle and sent all the AIs the wrong information, and they thought all of a sudden all the variables had changed. New weather means new pricing for commodities, natural disaster, stuff like that. They mispriced the commodities in a time when Japan was open and America wasn't open. This is and specifically for this Japanese company, the prices dropped. The prices fluctuated so fast that somebody had shorted that company. And the price of that company dropped off of a cliff so quickly that it completely panicked all of the AIs. The panicking of the AIs means they reacted in a way as if the world was ending, which sent the volatility of the Japanese index through the roof. The moment that happened, it was this. And I was sitting there at the computer, right? I'm sitting there just watching this happen. I was sitting there staring at the screen for no reason, but my spidey senses said, sit here and stare at the screen all day. And I just saw volatility go and go and go. And I was like, oh my God, COVID, here we go. It looks like COVID's happening. For 40 minutes, wasn't even 40 minutes. Like on the VIX, it was. Go down to the 15-minute chart. And we go to August 5th. $2024. Okay, why didn't we go there, guy? My brain is not working right now, to be honest. 2024, August 5th. Ah, that's why. 2024, August 5th. This is what it looked like that day. And it was like, I was sitting looking at it at basically at this time. The moment it opened, within seconds, it spiked. Within minutes, it spiked. And then we went off on this spike, you know? And it was like, it was this that freaked me out. Because I was like, the volatility had already gone up. And all of a sudden, Japan pops off. And in this little window here, Japan doing what it did freaked out the US markets. My point is, you could see what happened in Japan, and you could then extrapolate what's about to happen in the US at open. What happened as soon as the US opened is they realized the issue with the pricing of the data, and volatility dropped right away. Okay, this is volatility dropped basically right away. But and we caught it in that timeline there, in the 40 minutes that it took to actually do it. 20 minutes that it took to do it, but for 40 minutes it was basically is the time that it took to execute it. So a similar thing happened during the Trump crash. So this was like, it wasn't as black and white as this, but this was like 2025. Let me just reset this. This way, I got to stop going to sleep in massages before I do this. VIX, April. Right here. On Friday, we had the crazy crash. Volatility has spiked. Do we buy it? No. Just wait. Let the world burn. On Monday morning, I'm sitting there watching Japan, China, Korea, India, Europe, Thailand on the way, and these different countries opening and watching the volatility spike in all of these different countries. You could see it going nuts, and you could see different stock markets shutting down from the insane amounts of trading that was happening. By the time it got to the US, volatility actually started here and started collapsing downwards, which was saying that volatility wasn't spiking anymore, it was going down. At the same time, you could see that the stock markets had pulled a bottom, right? This was the exact same time. So stock market, this was Friday, this was Monday. Friday, it closed here, and you're like, let's see what happens. Monday, it opened here, it bounced around for a second, and then it closed up here. But what it was doing was it opened here, it went down, and then it just hung out here for a decent bit of time, and then it came up. In that hanging out, you could see, okay, now all the world's markets have collapsed and have been shut down. But the moment the US opened, we expect the US to crash. So you would go in and just say, oh yeah, let it crash. But actually the US found a nice bottom. And from there, while it was all the way down here, when it came back to here, I already bought it, right? So that's the nuance of what's going to happen now. There's going to be some kind of event. Nobody kind of sees it coming, completely out of the blue. now that nobody expects rates to drop, nobody expects anything to happen, is the time when it happens the worst. It's going to happen in a way where probably on a weekend, and it rolls around the world. We see what happens in the world. A lot of the world has already started to kind of put in a bottom on their stock markets. So China right now is starting to turn, right? China is starting to kind of make the rounded top. The US is starting to make the rounded top. I mean, this started a long time ago. Is putting in a rounded top. Yeah. But places like Japan has put in a top, but it's still kind of hanging out in the zones. Japan should see a waterfall. India, waterfall has begun. It's begun pretty seriously, but once it moves beyond this zone, then we got a nice waterfall coming up. Korea, waterfall has begun. It's begun and it's already bouncing around, but we're ready for the next thing. Germany, waterfall has begun. It's basically going straight. Let's see how much lower it goes. UK, waterfall has begun. Right? Even the American stock markets have now broken below this level. Everybody is hoping support. All the chartists were drawing lines here. It's going to bounce from here. Not really. That's a waterfall and a half. It might, at some point it should see a pretty serious rally up. We're not going to get caught in that, but there should be one hell of a waterfall that makes all of this stuff happen, because the bond market's already signaling it, right? When we're looking at the move index, when it makes a move like that, it's called a move index for a reason. When it makes a move like that, it's telling you something very sharp is about to happen in the rest of the world, or at least in the US markets. Semiconductors have put in the top, have made the head and shoulders. That means they're going to drop this much lower according to that pattern. So they at least go down to here, but I think we see a pretty serious fall off of a cliff for some time. The equally weighted index, or equally weighted S&P effectively, is waterfalling already, telling you the truth. The entire stock market and the entire stock market index for the New York Stock Exchange is already falling and is telling you the truth. Now, it needs to fall below here and go all the way down to here somewhere for this process to finish, if we had to just draw some lines on it. At the same time, looking at our Hooker index, the economy seems to be putting in a bottom. So it looks like things are going in the right direction as far as the economy is there. Junk bonds falling off of a cliff, right? So when you're looking at all these details, at the same time, gold falling off of a cliff. Silver, cliffy, folly. Oil going straight up. We've had this insane spike, but it's going straight up again. For it to go up here and cause another spike and go off the charts during the closing of what's that strait called? The other strait, the Houthi strait, them doing that and at some kind of false flag happening at the same time would cause this to spike to levels which would, cause some insanity to happen in the markets. Now, Bitcoin has broken below its actual flag. This is drawn way better than me by a guy named Gareth, who I just copied, to be honest. But the fact that it has broken down below this level is a warning sign, because I was just waiting for this process to repeat. And this pattern is such a common pattern. We've looked at it before, but it's like crash, bounce around in the zone. Oh, I'm going to leave. No. Oh, I'm really going to leave. No. Sorry, I was going to crash anyway. It's like crash, bounce around in the zone. Oh, I'm going to leave. No. Oh, I'm really going to leave. No. Oh, sorry, I was going to crash. Right? So the same thing is playing out on this side. Breaking down below this level has been the kind of final signal. That's why I put out the sell alert back here. Told you guys, hey, sell it now, because that is about as good as we can get it. That's the same kind of spidey senses, same situation that played out here is now seems to be playing out right here for Bitcoin. At the same time, MicroStrategy which is an even bigger risk than Bitcoin, has just barely been holding on. It doesn't have the kind of glorious, beautiful breakaway style moments playing out. It's barely holding on. The moment MicroStrategy goes below this level, it's over. It's over, Casanova. We're going straight down. We're going right there, somewhere around there. So the fact that everything is like teetered right onto the edge says a lot. XRP is just hanging out in no man's land. Like, it's just hanging out in the middle of nowhere, where actually here I actually started looking at things from a slightly different perspective. Sometimes I only pull this up when I need it, but this perspective, which is like the volume profile of the visible range, right? This is a good way of looking at things to see, okay, where is the amount of volume that could provide some support? And is there a lot of volume providing a lot of support? Right? Imagine this is like platforms that extend like this. And where it's thick, it's hard for price to fall through because there's a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers, depending on which direction it's going towards. Where it's thin, it's very easy for it to fall through. So where it was thick here, it's been supporting it. Well, guess where we are now? We're right here, which means boom, bam, shablam. 66 cents, here we come, right? Now, yes, you could go all the way back here and all of this data changes. So things are all about perspective. But still, looking at it like that, well, then there's barely anything here, right? Then this is where the thickness of the board starts, and all the way down to this region, which ends up being like, let's say 66 cents, is where the real thickness of the board starts. So that's why I placed the Katana right there, because I'm like, slicing through all this makes sense. Starting to go into this kind of price action, that's a lot of support down there and a lot of buyers down there. And I want to be one of the highest. I want to buy low enough, but not get too greedy about it, right? So now, would we only buy when it goes to 66 cents? No, that's just where the automatic Katana is set. So if I'm away from the computer, I don't know why I would be away from the computer. Maybe I'm at the gym. Maybe I'm at the MMA, or maybe I'm at doing weights. That's as far from the computer as I will be. But if I'm away from the computer, it auto triggers at 0.6666, and when I'll be at the computer, I'll manually trigger it if we need to. The goal is just to catch it. The goal is not to try to get too cute with it. Same analysis, Solana, zoomed out. If you want a Solana, these are the levels. We are below the support level. There's not major support levels until down here, which ends up being that 55, 57 range. But still, that's not too much. In a massive Katana, I wouldn't be surprised if we go all the way down to here, $30, $40, somewhere around there. At the least, $45. Like, if we don't go to 45, something went wrong. But we could go down to 30, 20, looking at it from that perspective. And then if you just look at least recent times, that's what it looks like. It's good to look at recent times because these levels have already been gone through in this price action. The whole time we were going through this, we already went through the levels of this, right? So that's why it's good to just look at the more recent times and see, okay, where are the support levels? Where's the most amount of volume? So, bouncing down here, a little bounce, and then down here. That's why assets do this, to kind of bounce off these levels. There you go. Solana. DOGE is pretty bottomed out. Like, DOGE is, it's hard to get DOGE lower than this. It'll probably spike lower and do a little bit, but it's pretty difficult to get DOGE at a discount beyond that. Where the fuck did I draw this to? But DOGE, just to get back to its all-time high, has a 7x from this price where we're at. If it drops a bit more and we get a nice little discount on it, great. But at some point, DOGE is going to go well beyond its all-time high, especially as the currencies hyperinflate. So for me, like, I'd say DOGE at somewhere up here. Yes, I'm telling you, $10 DOGE is not out of the question this time around, because this is how it should be. The old price action looks like a completely insignificant little bumpity bump when you're done with this thing. But yes, we're going to try to do our best to catch we're definitely catching Doge lower, but wherever that is. But it doesn't seem like it's going to go much lower. It's already starting to find a lot of support. A trick that I've been using that's been working pretty damn well. There's a theory out there about this World of Liberty financial thing, and that it predicts the direction Bitcoin's going to go, and it's been doing well. The fact that it was on a downwards trajectory and hanging out in the zone, it gave me a lot of confidence that the little run we had in Bitcoin, where everybody thought we were going to break out, this thing went down, and I was like, okay, Bitcoin seems like it's going to go down. That's why it's on my watch list. I think it's foretelling a story that a lot of stuff happens. And then like the rest of the assets, I'm not even going to go through because they are going to fall off of a cliff and cause a lot of damage, and I don't want to scare you guys. Okay, so what's the name of the liquidity indicator you're using on TradingView? It is called VRVP. Sounds like an Indian person trying to pronounce that they just became a VP. The one I'm using is called, visible range volume profile. Literally visible range volume profile. I then set it to 200 rows. Here in the settings, I go to row size, and I make it 200 rows so that there's more for me to be able to see. Otherwise, there's not enough rows to be able to see the details. Ethereum, right, good point. Good point. Ethereum. No? Ethereum's not at the worst place. Yeah, but yeah. Ethereum probably doesn't go below this level. I mean, famous last words, but Ethereum probably doesn't go below this level, below 1,000 again, because that puts it basically at the bear market lows from last time. And slicing through this level for Ethereum is going to be a decent bit. But if in this crash, chopping through these levels makes a lot of sense. So I would say Ethereum around that 1,300 mark is not out of the question, right? But Ethereum below 1,000 probably means something went horribly, horribly wrong. But Ethereum, same thing. It's on the buy list for the people who need to stay in crypto for us and not go to the stuff. On the Wall Street cheat sheet, where do you think the tip of the katana will probably be? For example, down through panic to anger zone, then a bounce, sell another dip, katana to depression or rebuy. That's confusing. Is it possible that the cheat sheet doesn't play out completely and you just take off after a major katana? First of all, the cheat sheet never doesn't play out, right? Like, it's just how human psychology works. But if you have to look at the cheat sheet, let's pull up my version of the cheat sheet. Okay, so we are now here. We are now here, right? We're about to go through a capitulation event. So people are going to panic. They're going to capitulate and get 100% out of the market at the wrong time. That's why now people are starting to think about shorting. One of our lovely people was talking about shorting. This is the moment when people start to think that shorting is a smart idea. What's going to happen now? We're here. We're actually here. I mean, who knows? This is, again, just my opinion and my projections, but we're here, right? We have a next waterfall, major crash. Things crash down to a bottom. A bottom. Maybe not the bottom, just a bottom. That's when people capitulate, which means they sell all of their assets at a huge loss and lay down flat like that. We catch that. Then there's a bounce. Then there's a second bottom. Usually happens, almost never fails to happen. works 60% of the time, every time. There's a bottom, then there's a bounce, then there's another bottom. Maybe lower, maybe higher. Who knows? We catch this, maybe we sell this. Or maybe we ride it lower and we have to sit on losses for some period of time. Who knows? Let's see what actually plays out. If we catch it and then we're able to exit here, then we catch it again here. That's another, risky play that we make a move on. Now, does it then go down and make a third bottom and do this? No, not guaranteed. No, but is it likely that it does that? No. Usually after the second bottom, they don't really give you an opportunity to be able to go in and buy at a discounted price again. It might just chop around and do some stuff and do a certain way. This part of the cheat sheet it varies, right? But the fact that this happens, people capitulate, people then become angry, people then give up on crypto, and they watch their stocks burn and everything burn in a way that they're like, holy shit, I got to be careful and not take risk, and I'm not going to enter these risk assets. That process playing out here is as guaranteed as it gets, How come Atreides is green for Bitcoin? Perhaps I don't understand how Atreides works. This is a really good question. This is a really, really good question. Because most people don't understand how Atreides works. Atreides is an algo. Boom, mind blown. Atreides is an algo. Did you know that? Bringing you the professor deals today. Atreides is an algorithm, right? It's not an AI. An AI thinks and does stuff. An algorithm is a mathematical calculation that is true or not, right? The result of a mathematical calculation is one way or another. When it's one way, you can when it's one way, it takes an action. When it's another way, it takes another action. I'd love to see the cheat sheet this way. Can I send documents in here? Oh yeah, I can send you documents. Yeah. I'm also going to give you guys access to the folder that has all of these things in there, so you can go and enjoy it to your heart's content. And we're building out the place on Excellency where all of this information is going to live, so you guys will have access to it there as well. So Atreides is an algorithm. It's a mathematical calculation that says when X happens, do X. When Y happens, do Y. Okay? So what it says is it's taking volume in the markets and it's adding it on top of the previous volume. And that makes this bottom part. This is Atreides. Okay? It keeps adding and subtracting volume depending on how much volume we have. And when things cross below this threshold and they meet certain requirements, which have been optimized, then it turns red. Okay? And when it goes above and the volume starts to accumulate in a way that it seems like, and then certain metrics are met, then it turns green. That's all it's doing. Right now, the volume turned green back here. Right? You can see the crash happened. The volume was negative the whole time. The on-balance volume, the OBV, was negative the whole time. Then it started to trend upwards. Price, it was still red. Price is going sideways. Then more money started to flow in than out on average, let's say. Right? In the pipe, you could see more water was flowing in than out. When that happened, it said, and then it waited to make sure it doesn't get faked out. It waited a bit until here. See, that what they did is they tried to fake it out here, but it didn't get faked out. Then it turned green here. It said, look, now the metrics are met. More water is flowing in than out. Turn green. Makes sense. Now it's going through the process of subtracting negative volume to get to a point where it breaks below, and then it turns red here. Right? It turns red here. Then it will turn red and tell you, hey, let's get out and let's go. This is its job. This is what it does. This is why it's so good, because most of the time When the big runs happen, volume goes positive in such a big way that price runs up in a significant way. And then money starts to leave the markets, but the price keeps going up. And the average person has no idea what to think about that. But Atreides knows fuckery happeneth, and it knows to get out. Not that it knows. The mathematical calculation just proves that this is what's happening. More money is starting to flow out than in, therefore prices should go down. Then more money starts to flow in, prices go up, it stays green. More money starts to flow out, prices turn red. See, like prices keep going up, yet the water flow tells you a secret, so then it says get out, right? So it's working perfectly fine. This is why in XLNC, Atreides has been off in this whole time zone. Because the framework, my framework, the human framework, thinks about, okay, in which situations is Atreides going to get faked out the most? Okay? In these situations where we're going down and we're having bounces, the whole point is to trick you into getting in at these points, right? That's why the price moves like this. That's why the price looks like it's about to leave, because the traders draw a line and they go, when it goes above the line, I'm getting in. And they get you in right there above the line, right? I know they're going to try to fake you out. So I know they're going to fake out they're obviously going to put in enough money so that things go up. They're also going to put in enough money here to make it look like things go up. That's how it works. When they put in the money, Atreides is going to think everything's great and it's going to get you in. But you're going to get in here and you're going to get out here. You're going to lose a little bit there. You're going to get in here. You're going to get out here. You're going to lose a little bit there. This is part of the journey of taking average investments. If you lose a tiny bit here and a tiny bit here and a tiny bit here, it's nothing compared to when you make a fuck ton bit here, or a fuck ton bit there, or a fuck ton bit there, or a fuck ton bit there, right? So when you average it out, you lose tiny bits here, but you make tons here, and it makes sense. For me, I turn Atreides off during this time because I know this is how the game is played. For us, we're going to wait until we have this kind of a proper bottom where we Katana catch, where Atreides would never be able to catch it. We run up from there. Then Atreides turns green. Then there's another bottom, second bottom that plays out. At that point, Atreides would turn red on the way down. That's when we would sell. Then there would be another Katana catch. That's when we buy, where Atreides wouldn't be able to buy. Then we run up. Like looking at it in the historical perspective, it'd be something like this. It'd be like, I told you guys to sell here. Now we've had the crash. Now we've had the bump up. This was 2022 bottom, right? 2022 bottom, yeah. Look, same pattern, exact same pattern. Crash, bounce around. Oh, I'm going to leave. No, oh, I'm going to leave. No, I'm not. Crash. Okay, crash, bounce around in the zone. Oh, I'm going to leave. No, I'm not. Oh, I'm going to leave. Crash. Right? So we've had this crash now. We've hung out here for, a while. Oh, I'm going to leave. No. Oh, I'm going to leave. No. Next crash, right? This next crash is what I assume the Katana to be. Just thinking about patterns. We catch it here. Fuck it. We fuck it up. We catch it here. Sorry. Okay. We then run it up. Atreides turns green. Then Atreides exits. See, here, there was more than enough volume going in. So then Atreides exits here, right? We make money from here to here. It looks small, but that's where the money's made, okay? I think this time around, the bounce is going to be much better, but let's just imagine this is the situation that plays out. So, caught it, and we only make 22% in this probability. Like, we only make 22%. Hilarious. Okay. It's not going to be like this. It's going to be more like this. If I had to, because this time around, volatility is higher than the times were back then. So instead of having these flat collapses, it should be some more volatile crashes and bounces. Okay. But then the second bottom happens. Atreides exits, then the second bottom happens. We catch it again. And then from there, the real game begins. And then we go da 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 da. Now this has happened in Bitcoin previously. Is Bitcoin going to do this? No. Bitcoin is just going to do this. Crash. Okay, yeah, that 40, 30, 40, whatever. So it's like crash somewhere here. Da 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 da. Crash. And then back up. 150. Crash. That is the trajectory that I would look at. And if I just had to make it up, completely make it up, and just randomly draw lines, it's like crash, da, 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 second bottom crash, da, 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 run up, 150 something, crash, second bottom crash, 350, crash, 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 and the whole world burns, and nukes go off in places, and mutating AI cyber attacks, and giant robots land from the sky, and aliens introduce themselves, and they go, "Hello, we are here." Okay, now just give me 1 sec. I got to turn on these lights. Now, yes, think about that. Crash later on in the end of 2027, another crash. That looks like what's in the cards now, right? So us catching it here, maybe the double bottom is much closer. Who knows? But even then, there should be something else should be coming closer to the end of 2027. Some major crash should be coming closer to the end of 2027. Maybe it's down bottom here, and then another run up, and then closer to the end of 2027 here, somewhere here we see a crash, but something like that. Who knows? Now at this point, I'm just fucking guessing, right? But there should be waves that we see happening. Do you view this point in time within the 4-year cycle theory with half-year bear markets where we could be at, or how do you see it? The 4-year cycle theory is done. There's no, this isn't, if you had to take the 4-year cycle theory, you have to say that this is a 5.4-year cycle theory because the debt was extended, right? That I'm not relying on the 4-year cycle theory for pretty much any of my assumptions. As a matter of fact, I'm assuming that the 4-year cycle theory is done because those 4-year cycles were during a time where everything was fine. The universe was fine. We had a pump, we had a dump. We had a pump, we had a dump. We had a pump, we had a dump. Like that is the cadence of how things go. Now we're in a stage of history where all currencies are doing this. At that time, currencies were doing this. Now we're expecting to do this. Yeah, sure. It might be like this, and then like this, and like this. Like it's climbing upwards, but the trajectory is going higher and faster. So that idea of 4-year cycles is exactly what's being used to trick people into believing that everything's playing out the way that it used to play out. You know how this is different? Let me show you why this is different. This time is different. When you layer the altcoin market on top, you see that there's a massive difference in the way that this cycle is playing out. This blue line is the altcoin market. That's Bitcoin in the background. Altcoins have ran up with Bitcoin every single time and then have outperformed in a massive way. That is a normal bull cycle. That is what's supposed to happen. Something as risky as Bitcoin runs up, and then that money flows to the other risky things, and they go bananas, and that's where the risk goes, and everybody goes nuts and loses all their money. This time around, we've had these waves. If this was the top of the 4-year cycle, what happened here? What happened to the altcoins? How come they didn't do anything? It's because the money printing hasn't even started yet, right? The real money printing back here happened because of COVID, right? COVID was right there. COVID was the excuse of the money printing. And then we had this run up. Then we had a proper bull cycle play out. Like back here, rates were actually going down and Bitcoin ran up, right? So it's like over here, rates were going up and Bitcoin ran up. Back here, the in the current bull cycle, we haven't had any dynamic play out that's been normal. This has just been Wall Street front loading. So the real bull market is ahead of us. Yes, there is a banana zone coming, and yes, it's going to be more bananas. It just doesn't look the same way that we expected it to. 4-year cycle is done. I think we're having the next 2 to 3 years is going to be the process of bigger and bigger pumps and bigger crashes until we get to that one day where it'll be the moment, the event. In all the apocalyptic movies, you see the event as the time when, it's like before the event, it was like this. After the event was like this. Right now, COVID is the event for us. There's the event coming that's going to make COVID just completely insignificant. Just like on these charts, COVID now looks like this. The entire world shutting down looks like that. On the global, on the macroeconomic and societal scale, something is coming that's going to be the time. 2028 is the timeline that I'd be putting it at. Will you be using the improved version of Atreidis and Math's platform? Yeah. You know who gets access to it first? We do. You know who has access to Math? We do. You know who's a co-founder? Math. Yeah, of course. We're the ones helping them, like not helping them build it, but we're like, yeah, like egging them on and go build it, bro. Like build your platform, do all the stuff. We will have access to custom Atreides. The one you guys get is built for you, right? It's optimized for you. The one we get is optimized for excellency, and we get to adjust it accordingly. And we know all the secrets of how it runs, all the nuances. Although he tells you the secrets too. He doesn't hide anything. It's exactly the same as 2022. I did the calculation for the bear market when Atreides is on. It has minus 5% for the in-layer bear market for 2022 and minus 14% in 2018. But in 2018, it already made a 16% plus. So basically, you'll be risking 5% in a 70% drop. Yeah. Like just using Atreides by itself, you have to understand there's going to be times when you take losses, right? So you got to pick your strategy and stick to it. If you pick a strategy that I'm going to follow Atreides, then you just follow Atreides. With excellency, I could see all of these things coming, and I was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to turn it on and off like an autopilot. When it's good, we turn it on. When I know it's going to be bad, we turn it off, and we just sit on the sidelines and wait. It's just most people don't have the patience to be able to sit for years and years and years and let their money do what it needs to do. You guys all have the patience. Okay. Now, one outlier I got to discuss is this one. Is what are they called? Canton network. I know I sent out that secret recording to you guys, and you could see Canton network. Canton is a different beast. Its chart is showing you that it's a different beast, but it's also just a different beast. Canton is the future. Now, don't just go out and buy it blindly, but I'm just pointing out that crypto is maturing to a point where the really, really, really big players have stepped onto the field. The BlackRocks, the State Streets, the BNY Mellons, the DTCC, then the Euroclears, the multi-trillion dollar entities. And the Canton network is one of the ones that they're getting into. So we're going to wait for this whole process to play out. If Canton doesn't get destroyed during that process, I'm actually going to make a recommendation to buy some Canton to people, and we might actually put it inside of Excellency, especially because they launched on Kraken live. They didn't go to DEXs and all this stuff. That's also a strategy I'm looking at for FarmScent. And maybe we just launch on a tier 1 exchange directly so that all the degens on the fucking decentralized exchanges don't have the ability to be able to crash us. Now, here's something else. You missed that recording? Yeah, it's something that let's talk about it in the group. It's not something I want to talk about publicly. I should not have even said these words. Story of my fucking life. Shouldn't have said these words. It's a sensitive topic. Let's talk about it in the group. Check this out. I was looking at prices of commodities with Bitcoin layered on top. And I had a realization. Commodities pump when Bitcoin drops and crypto drops. It makes sense because assets run up, money is made in assets, and then as that money gets made and starts to be deployed to buy things in the economy, it causes inflation to go up and prices of commodities go up. Then as the assets are crashing, risk assets are crashing, commodities are going up. Then commodities find a top and they come down and risk assets start to go up, right? As risk assets go up, commodity prices go down and then they turn and then they start to run up. So there's this negative relationship between them. FarmScent makes money from commodities, and those profits are used to buy farmer tokens off of the market. So that liquidity will be used to feed the price of the token, which means during bear markets, we will have liquidity coming into the token, which means our token crashes less. Now, will it crash? Fuck yeah. Every token is going to crash. When things pump, even after it's launched, once it pumps, I will tell you when to sell farmer token. I will tell you when to sell every single token. Okay, it's not some special thing that survives. The special part of it is that it makes money from commodities. So it's like that. This is rice. Okay, this is corn. Corn does really well during those times. So corn prices are high while risk asset prices are low. And that liquidity from the real world, from feeding actual people, goes into the token. Now, remember, this is when the world isn't complete. This is when the world is melting down. This is what prices do when the world is actually melting down. This is when the world is relatively fine. Okay? The world is melting down, down, down. So these things are going to pull a cacao. Look at this. This is what cacao did. Okay? And cacao doesn't have that relationship. Cacao actually pumped with crypto assets. But cacao, like fucking chocolate, did a 5x. That's crypto money, right? It actually, for some time, it outperformed Bitcoin. So I expect that commodities are going to do that. Coffee also goes alongside. Coffee doesn't follow that. Wheat does. Wheat has an inverse relationship in many ways. Wheat prices are high while risk asset prices are low. The movement is a little bit more correlated. Copper is going pretty much alongside. Gold has a pretty, with a bit of a delay, or I guess a lead, gold has a pretty, it's correlated. Silver, you get the idea, right? But food goods have this delayed effect, which means that we're going to use FarmScent as a hedge in many different ways. And in the crashes, especially after the ecosystem matures, we're going to add more and more liquidity into the system. And because we have a digital asset treasury running inside of FarmScent, which yours truly is going to run, and inside of different funds, we're going to use those digital asset treasuries as liquidity pools to be able to dump that capital into the bear market and buy up the tokens at a massively discounted price. So there you go. A bunch of different secrets. Any other questions before we close this thing off with a little song and dance? I can use these commodities as an indicator when the bottom is in for Bitcoin. Yeah, add it to the framework. We're learning more and more as we go. When the bottom is in for crypto is easy. Just go into the Real Vision Hive chat and try to get somebody to buy any crypto. And if everybody says no, that's the bottom. It's pretty easy. Okay, so let's close off on this. That this whole process about optimizing life, making shifts, setting up different structures. I'm sitting here listening for 3 hours to try to absorb all of this, playing this game a new way with algorithms. All these things are a process of going beyond the limits of what we have done before, what you may have done before. Remember that growth sits on the other side of that limit. If you're in your comfort zone, remember that is, you never grow during comfort. You shrink during comfort. The point of life is not comfort. The point of life is to be lived. And if living means that you're comfortable at a moment, be comfortable. Enjoy the comfort, love it, appreciate it, really soak it in. But soak it in the same way that this too shall pass. When the times are good, this too shall pass. When the times are bad, this too shall definitely too pass, right? So if you're now going through the pain, remember the pain is where the growth is. The pain is where you go beyond your limits. The pain is where you discover who you really are. And the more pain you go through, the more possibility of comfort you get on the other side, right? Many of you have been going through the pain of the crashing markets. Now you're going through the comfort and pleasure of watching markets crash. Fantastic. That you're offloading to me. I'm happy to have that. We're happy to have that, pain upon us. That's nothing to us because we've grown strong enough to be able to handle that no problem. Now, in the middle of the comfort that you have right now, soak in the fact that the world works great because this too shall pass. Love your loved ones, hug them properly, whatever it means for you to love super deeply, because this is the last twilight of the day that we have known as life in this old world. There's a new day coming, but in between is a long dark night. And the next few years are going to be that process. And then you're just going to wish that you were here. So if you feel like you're kind of in this stutter stepping time and you're like, I don't know if I should, I don't know if I know. No, go for it. Because you're going to regret not doing whatever you're thinking of doing because you could have done it now. Rarely do people regret doing what they're doing. So to signify that, we're going to listen to this song, which is called Beyond Limits. Actually, no, let's listen to a different one. I like, Stand Up. Fuck it. Mid Pivot. Also because I just want to stand up, to be honest. And why not play a song that makes you stand up?
Stand up, chin on the wire, heart still loud, burning like a fire. Everyone talking, let me know my route. Couldn't see my shoes still running mouth. Late nights, notes on the crumpled pad. Told myself I'm more than the things I like. Friends saying take that shot. Dad in the driveway, get what you got. I was that kid with the two big dreams. Now I fit them just right in these torn blue jeans. Stand up straight, even if I fall off. I'm still here every time the ball drops. I get hit, I get hurt, but I walk it off. I walk it off, I walk it off. Stand up straight when the floor feels soft. If I slip, if I trip, I just brush it off. You can push, you can pull, but I won't get lost. I won't get lost, I won't get lost. Talk that talk, but I pay my dues. Turn my doubts into concrete rules. Rule 1, don't quit on a bad day. Rule 2, leave fear in the hallway. I've been broke with a bus pass, long ride, whole life packed in it, small pride. Friends went left when the road been right. I chose fight over quiet in the night. Even if I fall off, I'm still here every time the ball drops. I get hit, I get hurt, but I walk it off. I walk it off, I walk it off. Stand up straight when the floor feels soft. If I slip, if I trip, I just brush it off. You can push, you can pull, but I won't get lost. I won't get lost, I won't get lost. They said slow down, I said why that tone? You can't steer me from a path I own. I carved this lane from my straight up knees. Now the road spells out my name in ink. I was down there talking to my doubt. Now my doubt sit quiet when I shout. Every no got folded in my fist. I turn every single one into a gift. Look, I'm that proof. You can't grieve my worth. Took that thing, put it straight in the verse. Got my flaws on display like art. Every scar is a map on my heart. I don't flinch when the storm blows through. Rain on my face, but my aim stays true. You can laugh, you can talk, you can point. I'll be standing on the same storm joints. Even if I fall off, I'm still here every time the ball drops. I get hit, I get hurt, but I walk it off. I walk it off, I walk it off. Stand up straight when the floor feels soft. If I slip, if I trip, I just brush it off. You can push, you can pull, but I won't get lost. I walk it off, I walk it off. Stand up straight when the doubt talks loud. Stand up straight to the Concrete jungle where the weak crumble, the strong rumble. Is that hunger in my stomach get grumbles? Gotta hustle, muscle flex, no rumbles. Street smarts, book smarts, combine them, that's genius. Seen cats rise, seen them fall, and seen them fiendish. Fight them to me, the cleaning, no misdemeanor. Word to your mama drama, I'm the arena, glean the stance. No stumbles, no fumbles, no crumbles. Concrete jungle where the weak crumble, the strong rumble. Is that hunger in my stomach get grumbles? Gotta hustle, muscle flex, now rumbles. Hands on the good game, but the actions of contradiction. Fiction or non-fiction, pure conviction, no friction. Perfection, only addiction, the main attraction. Satisfaction, reaction, a chain reaction. And if I'm far wrong, I'm still here every time a ball drops. I get hit, I get up, but I walk it off. I walk it off, I walk it off. Straight up stay when your floor feels soft. If I slip, if I trip, I just brush it off. You can push, you can go, but I won't get lost. I walk it off, I walk it off.
And with that, we shall end the sermon for today. Thank you guys for being here. Genuinely appreciate your time, your energy, who you are as a human, and the fact that you choose to spend your Sunday here. The pricelessness of that is not lost on me. Love you all. Thank you for being here. If you're watching this, thank you for watching. Next time, we'll see you at 9 o'clock. It'll be even more delirious, even less coherent than it's been now. Thank you. Much love. Take care.